we are on, guys.
All right.
Yeah, that's great.
So my idea is not to ease up on the possibility of us editing later. You know, I don't give a fuck. It's that's not the idea. That's secondary, especially if I'm going to outsource it to him. So
Right.
no. What is important to me, so that we would enjoy it, because I don't think otherwise it would worth a listen. Have you listened to what we recorded last time?
I did, of course.
Oh yeah, cool.
Of course.
Did you like it?
Of course, it was pretty good, I think. And in terms of the discussion we had, it did flow pretty well, and I didn't feel like it needed more structure. But I just thought if you were to clip it in smaller pieces, then it would have helped. But
I will.
That is not the.
I will. I planned to do it
primary
last
goal.
night, and I brought my computer, and I didn't bring the charger. So
Because in our podcast, you could clip it in shorter clips. Because I did do. You do feel some transitions where it's like it's possible to.
it will be.
Yeah,
It will be. I checked. I actually also downloaded the version I did with him, because there are some topics that I would want to hit with that too. It's just never happened because it takes time to render. It takes time to select
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
and then so
I can imagine.
yeah.
Shouldn't we hide the bottle or something?
It's not illegal.
No,
I'm going to drink from it, so
We're all adults here.
yeah. So it's
it's
we are
about-
in since we are in Europe, it's not allowed to smoke pot, but neither of us smokes.
Yeah.
So that's
I don't
not an issue. And then yeah, so that's pretty much about it. How you guys have been doing?
Good, good.
So you worked a
You
lot.
didn't have a boss today.
Yeah.
God damn.
What was it? The no boss day? She's not here.
No boss
or
day, that's right.
Not around.
It's it gives you a little more freedom than usual. Not much, but just enough to find some pleasure in it.
Like how? Why more freedom? Because
Well,
she's
no,
not.
no. There's a lot more meetings and
Less
questions
tension?
about what's going on and updates and stuff that you have to go throughout the day when your boss is around, which is reasonable. But when that doesn't happen, you have all the time to do your work at your own pace. You don't have someone
Yeah.
waiting for you to report to them. So it's a bit. more
It's less
relieving.
pressure.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is her job. So
So yeah, and then, yeah, there's this going slow is going fast, and
yeah, yeah.
Awesome. What about you?
Oh,
You haven't watched what we recorded though.
Oh yeah.
I don't think
I
so.
watched a piece of it, but not the whole thing because I don't really have two hours.
Almost 3 hours.
Yeah, almost 3 hours. Yeah, like when I get home in the evenings.
Dude, it's a
so-
podcast. You could just listen to it while playing Tomb Raider. So
Yeah, but I don't play Tomb Raider. It's like the last.
That's-
I have like 6 hours to sleep and shower, and then I go back to work.
sleeping is for a week. I keep telling you. So
For weak people,
a
yeah,
weak
but
or weak people.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, welcome to the second
depends-
episode then.
yeah. So cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah, for weak people. That's what I am when I get home. I'm weak. I'm fucking weak.
Let me
Yeah,
just,
some days are like that. It's like you feel like no more. I can't take any more than what
Yeah, but I
the day
really,
has been.
yeah, when you have really long days and it's physical, also, and yeah, there are multiple phases when I'm working for the opera these days, and there are multiple phases. And the first phase, like, mounting everything, building everything, structures, decors, stuff. Then this is pretty intense physically because you have like a lot to do, and you have to carry stuff around and move stuff and shit. And then there is the rehearsal part, and because when the decor, the structures and stuff are made, in the workshops, there are already rehearsals, but not on the stage. But then when it's on the stage, you have to stay there and change, the different, because in most operas you have different decors and stuff in the different
the
acts.
act,
So while they rehearse with the decor, and then you have to change it
Mhm.
and change it back to the first one, and then second one, and then third one. It depends on the you have like I don't know the name for it in English, but in French it's like tableau. You know, you have like different sceneries. Let's say.
Yes. Scenes or
So you
background.
change them, and in between the changes, you like waiting. So it's
You know why it's called a tableau, by the way? Because back then, when theater started, they
Yeah.
actually painted it. All
yeah,
of
it was like just backdrops basically.
It's called set in English. Pretty
Yeah.
sure.
It is, but a set is coming from movie, and
Yeah.
especially no, the theater,
The
the
set
old
is
theater.
like where the place and the material well it's shot.
Mm-hmm.
But
No,
when it's on
for theater in English right now, at least contemporarily, I think it's called the set where it's happening. This
yeah,
is
it's
the
where
set.
it's happening, but the decor and it's like more
Decoration.
yeah,
That's-
decoration, decor, or the
Yeah,
the scenery.
it's an interesting choice from your end. I never understood how you. I mean, I understood how you transitioned into this theater world, but it's just so weird that before I left Hungary, I worked for the theater, and we we have such a similar pathway in certain amounts. It's
Well,
unusual.
It's not theater, it's opera, and that is very different because back then, I mean, like maybe 20, 30 years before, it was very similar, you know, in terms of decorations and things, because it was like basically just chassis, you know, with like wooden stuff, or with you know, these wooden chassis with textiles on them, and painted textiles, or yeah, things like that. But nowadays they're like real decors, like steel structures with different stuff, like really volumes, and it's more challenging. Then, you know, you have
I
more.
don't think that's different in the theater either. It's just a
Oh,
question of budget. I mean,
Yeah, but the theater is it's way lighter, you know, in terms of in terms of
I disagree. It depends on what budget the production has. It's the same thing, or what budget the place has. But it's
yeah,
you know,
just in terms of size of the stage, you know, like the stage is way bigger.
again, it's a question of the building. I mean, it's not theater as a genre. That what you're
Yeah,
essentially
I
working
work in
as
a
just
theater,
called
but
the
it's
opera.
not theater. It's opera. It's bigger. The productions are usually way bigger. Let's say that, like the productions are bigger, decorations are bigger,
Well,
like
here in Strasbourg, it
richer.
might be the case. I
Yeah.
give you that. Well, where you work is, I think it's government funded, right? Yeah,
Yeah, not only, but it's let's say it's supported by the government,
it's
like
Opéra
state.
Nationale de
Yeah.
Strasbourg. So it's
Durand, yeah, it's like,
I must say I'm absolutely ignorant about the subject.
but
so-
it's
that's
but
that
is
way.
the
That microphone is
curiosity.
not going to record anything.
It's not.
No,
It's just-
I showed, and it's you turned it.
yeah,
You shouldn't have.
and just
It was set up for you. No,
When we
other
did the-
other way.
When we did the audio check, it was working fine because I didn't change it since. Okay.
There is some kind of an issue.
yeah, just
Does this work better now? I do think it did.
Yeah.
and you
Is it working
you
better,
don't have
do you
to
think?
you don't have to lean it in your direction. Just put it
No,
straight,
because
and
when
then
I
it's
speak
gonna
from
record.
here, I do not think. Okay, it's better now. Better
Yeah.
than before.
But
can-
it's
you
just that's just your hearing. The signal is weaker. The proximity of your speaking counts for a lot. I have compressors after. Anything that you hear in your ears is the natural signal level.
Right.
There is aftertouch that I have on everything afterwards, but yeah, it's again, it's a complicated system. So yeah. Okay.
So yeah, and I'm not doing what I was about to say is I'm not doing only the operas thing, and it's
Oh yeah,
that's
sure.
that's what also what I like. You know, it's the changing places, work hours, schedule, everything. It's and it's a very different job depending on if you work in a big concert arena, or the opera, or a festival, something. It's always very different. And yeah, the opera, there is more, let's say, you work more with the wood, and steel and stuff. It's more small things. Since the decor is it's custom made for the production. It's a new one every time,
Mhm.
and it's not like you're doing a roading job for a concert in a big arena where they bring their stuff. There is stuff that is rented on the set, but it's usually always the same stuff. The same. You have lights, you have beams and things like that, but it's these are standard things, and
Yeah.
working at the opera, it's the opportunity to work on really custom things and do woodwork and
It looks like
metalwork.
you enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, not all the time. I mean, I couldn't do that all year long, but yeah, it's nice to just change the type of work you're doing.
Suits you,
Yeah,
I think.
it's
Yeah.
it's cool.
Have you been to anything like
So
theater,
the opera,
opera?
no. Theater over here, not at all. Back in India, sure, I've been to multiple theater performances. The opera, never. I
Why not?
don't. I mean, I do want to check it out just for the curiosity of it, but not really something I was interested in based on what I've seen of the opera, like in pop culture and other media forms. But actual opera performances, never been to.
Yeah,
I do want to go to a theater performance here just to see if. But for that, I do have to get more proficient in the language, and then
I think so. That was my problem also. That's why I never
well, you,
really
you
tackled
should check because sometimes you have like
subtitles.
you have shows in English.
that would be
There
cool.
are like
Yeah.
not subtitles because it's over the stage, so
Yeah, it's
over titles. It's called
surtitles.
surtitre in
Ah,
French.
well,
So it's like because it's
On
over the stage, but
okay.
it's like you can have a lot. I saw a piece. It was in Hungarian, and
Really? Wow.
and the titles were in German. And it was in Strasbourg. I was like,
Jesus.
wow.
Wow.
Was really it was Chekhov's the wedding, or I don't know what the English name for it, but it was a Chekhov piece for theaters. And it was,
Chekhov is not Hungarian, as far
no,
as I
but
can tell.
the company was Hungarian.
Oh,
So
well, that happens.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, let's say.
Wow.
But yeah, the opera it's really much more expensive than just theater pieces.
It's a different
It's-
environment. It's a different experience altogether. But I gotta say, I think it's an acquired taste today
Yeah.
because well, you have to use your imagination in ways that I don't think any modern technology endorses today.
Mhm.
So it's
How?
so it's a bit complicated, to actually enjoy it, and because you have to let go of the fact that it doesn't look like a movie, or it doesn't function like a movie.
Yeah, it's not as loud. It's not, and
It's not as flashy either, and you see that it's fake, no matter how good the decoration is.
Of
You
course.
see it.
yeah, it's a bit in
Suspension
between.
of disbelief
Watching
is
a
quite
movie and
high.
reading a book. It's a bit in
Yeah,
between.
something like that.
Something like that. But and yeah, the environment, because if you go in the opera, in a lot of venues, the opera are like in modern venues, like when we play in Mulhouse. But here it's these old opera building with the gold sculptures, the red seats, old amphitheater, and it's like the frame
Well, I
is,
mean,
is, is
for
beautiful.
me, I don't know if it is about the extent to which I can relate to it, because what you said in terms of the suspension of disbelief is quite higher, and the way it's narrated is quite different. Those things do matter in the sense that, yeah, you can relate to this form of media or not. But if I'm not wrong, again, I could be very wrong. The performances in opera are usually in the form of like not a musical, but a sung to the act or the screenplay or whatever is
Okay.
performed as a musical art.
Well,
That is something that
musical is something that's I always looked as a okay. So in order to understand how you look at the genre and how to listen to it, it's like opera is the time when they invented this form or perfected this form was the pop music of the era. So it wants to please you. It wants to tell a story. There was no TV. There was no radio. So these are lengthy stories, usually very dramatic. It makes me think often makes me think of Iron Maiden, for example, because it was Bruce Dickinson once who said that you have to act big and you have to have big gestures and everything. And I think he
Yeah.
took it from theater
Yeah.
to stage, but I grew up with that, so to me it looks like Iron Maiden because it's a bit exaggerated all the time.
Exaggerated.
It's fun.
As theater tends to be, because theater doesn't.
It has to.
It has to be exactly. Theater cannot
It's-
afford the subtleties of expression that cinema.
Yeah.
That
Nobody's
current
gonna
media
see
forms.
like a motion like this
That's true.
from the
That's
20th
true.
row. So
Which is exactly why I was never able to pay much attention or find myself interested more in older movies. For example, older movies in India and over here as well tend to be far more exaggerated because the camera techniques and editing techniques were not good enough to allow more subtle expressions and more actually like realistic portrayal of emotions and stuff. Now it's far more possible just because how well we can
well,
use
technology advanced a lot.
exactly.
Yeah, helps a lot.
So for me, whenever I watch old movies, sure they have a charm to them, but it's so absurd that I find myself completely drawn out of it. And the opera would be the same for me.
Well, the opera isn't static, in terms of direction. You can see a very clear evolution in the last decades.
course.
When you even in a recorded performance, you can see that like back in the days, it was the opera was more a static thing, with the direction. They would sing, but they had costumes, but it wasn't moving a lot. They were here, like singing and stuff. Nowadays, it's much more.
We have seen different pieces, man. That's for sure. In 2011, I guided rehearsals in the opera. It
Yeah,
wasn't.
2011, it was like not in the 80s or the 70s. When you look at,
I wasn't born in the 70s.
Yeah, but when you look at recorded performance from then, you had like
Yeah, it was a
people
different
were
time.
way
that's for
more
sure.
static on the stage, and nowadays the direction can be way more. Yeah,
Extreme. Yeah, I would say.
not
But yeah, but
not
they try to
extreme, but
compete.
it's really it's easier to get in because it's much more moving. Guys are not dancing, but they're like moving and running, and I think the it makes it harder for them nowadays because they have to
Sure.
move while they sing.
Yes,
But for example,
definitely.
the last production I've the last year's production I've worked on, the guy he wasn't a director from the opera culture. He was more a guy for theater things, and so he was used, to have this very dynamic direction, and it was very interesting. But yeah, sometimes yeah, it's still a static thing, but it's evolving, and yeah, the costumes too. And now I don't know if I can say that, but in the production I'm working on, the guys, they have like flashy, paintball suits, and there are some details in some production nowadays. Like I remember one from the last season, not that one, but the one before. Like all the stage was like in this vinyl black chassis and
Wow.
flash yellow ones.
Wow.
And there was a tank in the middle of the stage that was supposed to explode at some point. It was filled with I don't know 1,000 liters of flashy yellow fluid or something. You have like very strange stuff nowadays.
Jesus.
But it's interesting. You never know. It's
I'd imagine there are also genres in this
Of course.
art form.
not really
No, there
genres,
there
but
are.
it's more in the music. Yeah. But then the
Oh,
how
every
it's gonna
director is
look like
different.
depends entirely on the director and the chief of the decoration.
And also on the occasion, because when you go through a rehearsal phase and then you start seeing the artists perform, the charm of the theater and the opera is that it's not going to be even remotely the same twice if you know where to look.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be
Well, of course.
in the same lines, but it's just like sheet music, It's an indication. You should follow it as much as you can, but it's not gonna be 100% any
course.
time. So
Yeah,
Go.
when you just see the when it's all in the interpretation. It's even in the length of the whole stuff. Like they have everything is like timed. We have tops. Like
Mm-hmm.
now you do that, you do that. We have intercoms
Mm-hmm.
and it's funny because before we actually rehearse on the stage, they have tops from a CD or from a version that's already been made, and it's not exactly the same time. You have like
Some
10,
variation.
20. You can have even 20 minutes on a 2 hours and a
Mm-hmm.
half piece. You can have a 20 minutes difference depending on
Wow.
just the interpretation, like taking
Piles
things
on, I
slowly,
guess.
like
Yeah.
when you have these
20 minutes, that's a lot.
yeah, that's a lot. But and
We
it's
try to do that with our kind of music, that's synchronized with the
yeah.
computer to a millisecond.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's even most of the opera pieces are adapted not most of them, but a lot of them are adapted from books,
Mm.
and some of them are like super long. And nowadays people aren't used to stay like
Shorter.
4 hours,
Yeah.
Yeah.
4 hours and a half. Some of them are really long in a room. So sometimes they just chop them off,
Mhm.
and they just they'll get rid of some parts to make it shorter. It's
How
let's say it's a
how
like a
far can
remake.
you guys go back watching movies until it's still giving your the illusion of the story? I
What,
mean, when we are talking about cinema, how old are the movies that you can still enjoy without having to consciously suspend your
Right,
disbelief?
right. Okay. For me, it would be around 2000s, 2000,
Wow. We just watched the first Terminator,
2000 something.
80,
yeah,
83, I think, when it came out.
83 something
No,
like that.
that's for me that would be too incredulous.
But to
It is
me,
too incredulous,
it
actually.
really depends. First, I told you, like in the first Matrix movie,
Mm.
to me, it's like looking back at it was,
It's pretty
it seems, it seems,
I love it.
No.
yeah, but it seems old to me. But I can watch some older movie that are less, that I can. When I watch them, I'm not like, yeah, this is some, 90s old stuff or something like that. They're
I
not
would so love to
dated.
No,
understand.
I still do love many of the movies that I can't relate to and find incredibly unbelievable. But you can tell, like, when I'm watching those movies, I feel like, yeah, this.
Yeah, like
You
it's
watch
not
it for the
relevant.
nostalgia
Stuff.
factor and not because it drives
No,
you.
no, no, no. No matter why I watch it right now, what I mean is I am not immersed in the movie the way I am in movies that are from after 2000s, let's say, for now.
Well,
But even in that, I
It's
feel like the
this
genres are important because the graph at which these movies and the way they are portrayed has changed differently for different genres.
oh,
Yeah, like for example, movies about I don't know, World War II or something,
Have
and
not.
even if they've been made in the 80s or something, it doesn't. I mean, maybe if the image is really like poor quality or something,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
if,
but
if
no,
it's if it's a
romantic
good quality
comedies
image,
have
yeah.
not changed at all.
Yeah, but
Basically.
but in romantic comedies you can see the I don't know, the hairstyles,
Yeah,
the
it's not
the
changed
clothes or
practically
something.
at all in terms of the plot, in terms of the
Yeah, but you can.
Yeah,
character.
but
These are things you can notice. It's like
No,
it's,
that's what I mean. But you watch a romantic comedy from the 90s and a romantic comedy from last year,
well, yeah, but
you would feel the
those
same.
require least
The
props
littlest
and
amount
the
of.
aftertouch and everything. And Matrix is a good example, but I don't see it aging as badly. And
Matrix has
it's
aged kind of
I didn't
badly.
Really?
I didn't
I
say
would
it,
say
I don't
so.
see it.
it's not that it aged bad, but it's it looks like something that's been made
Mhm.
15 years ago.
It looks
And
like
it's
something.
something I think about that when I watch the movie.
15. Well, it came
But
out 20 years ago, so I mean,
yeah,
yeah,
15,
It
15,
was
20.
far
Well,
ahead of its
you can.
time.
I think about it when I watch the movie. For example, Terminator. Yeah, of course, we talked about it during the movie. Like, yeah, the SFX or what was.
Yeah, you see it.
Where were the puppets and where were
Yeah.
the SFX and stuff.
Yeah.
But if I was watching that alone, I wouldn't think, okay, this has been made in the 80s during all the movie, which I did when the last time I watched The Matrix. It's just I don't know if it's really the special effects. They were like very well made, and they still are. But
Yeah,
it's like
yeah, it doesn't
for
drive
example,
me.
Titanic. If you watch Titanic,
Mhm.
the apart from the larger plans, when you see the boat, and it's clearly CGI, or these aerial views of the boat at some point, and you can see people on the decks and stuff, you can tell that it's CGI. But for
Otherwise,
most of the
yeah.
movie, it's fine. It's been made in like what 94 something like that.
He did use a lot of practical effects, although even in that time,
Yes,
which
but
is
it's
what
not
makes it
when you
more.
watch it. It's like it's fine. You know,
Yeah,
there is nothing that seems like
yeah,
that's
yeah,
home. You
yeah.
know,
It's aged better.
so maybe in the Matrix, yeah, and it's the styles. You know, the
The
styles
problem is that
because
I'm infatuated. I'm in love with it.
I
So
I
am
always
I.
was.
So am I.
it's a
So
great
I
movie. I
love The
didn't say it's not
Matrix.
I don't.
it's not a good
No,
movie. It's
I
just
love it.
the styles, you know,
But
just the people styles. Like they have these long jackets, leather jackets. You know, the glasses stuff. It looks
The
like
phones. The phones
the
are the only thing that throw
black
me off in
girls
that fucking movie.
the most
the
noticeable.
sunglasses and you know
Yeah.
these balls haircuts. Like they do that now as a revival from
Yeah.
these years. You know, like
I've been
people.
dressing the same for 20 years now because of
That's
that
that
movie.
was some neo-punk slash futuristic
Yeah,
kind
no,
of
with the
portrayals.
crop tops,
Yeah, yeah,
vinyl
yeah,
crop
it's a
tops,
bit
vinyl
silly.
pants, like dark these cherry red ones on black
But
people,
the
and
most
the blonde
obvious
hair.
thing in that is the conversation style, which is, um, and this is true about most movies in the 90s. The conversation styles are not at all believable to how we talk in real life.
It's not supposed to give you that feeling, though.
No, no, no. I'm not saying it's supposed to. Again, this is not a criticism of the movie. This is a criticism of the changes that have happened in this genre.
Okay.
Current day, most movies in almost all genres stick to conversation styles that the audiences would find relatable. Like just like back and forth. Many of it is improvised conversations, and you can tell that yeah, okay, this is how a normal person would talk. But in the Matrix, dialogues are delivered in with a sense of either exaggerated villainy or exaggerated what's the word for it, swag, which suits its style. And that movie, as ahead of its time it was, the conversation and the dialogue style is still in the 90s, set in the 90s, and many movies in the 90s had this. The dialogues would be,
What is the difference? Is the pace?
it's the way
It's
you
the
just
intent when
yeah,
they
yeah,
say
the way you
things. You know,
say.
it's
For
like
example, when Neo threatens someone, you can, if an actor does that today in a movie, you would laugh at that
yeah,
dialogue.
people would be like, yeah,
You'd
he's
be like-
overacting
Yeah,
and things.
yeah.
It's
You guys are talking about the trilogy now, not just the first Matrix.
I'm talking
then.
about all three.
Yeah, because
but
I don't.
not just Matrix. He's true. Like
Yeah,
when
he's
you
far
watch
more.
movies from the 90s, for example, like I don't know, not maybe not B movies, but you know
Yeah.
the like the typical action movie, like I don't know, Cobra with Stallone or something like that. You know, they were
Yeah,
like they
Stallone.
were saying their
Okay.
lines with you know these style. And,
No, I know what you
and
mean.
the villain were like, yeah, it's like
Yeah.
Hans Gruber and
Yeah, Hans
in,
Gruber,
in
exactly.
Die Hard and
The last action hero that Schwarzenegger actually made fun of some of that.
yeah,
that it's so
I
cliche.
loved
yeah,
it.
yeah,
I
okay.
loved it. Like and Schwarzenegger was just
And
perfect.
again, I love that, and I enjoy it even now as just a break. But you can tell the difference.
Oh,
when
yeah,
they go
sure.
when they
That-
go in the video
okay.
club and it's like Stallone who plays the Terminator.
Yeah,
He was
I
like,
know.
"Hey, it's Stallone. Who do you think he is? He's a
Yeah.
star." That was a great. But for example, the Matrix. You know, there is a movie that's it's not post-apocalyptic, but you know there is this kind of apocalyptic atmosphere in it. It's Strange Days with Ralph Fiennes and
No, I know
it's
it.
been made by Catherine Bigelow.
Yeah.
And it's been made. I think it was in '96,
Yeah.
and it's supposed to be in a not so distant futuristic Los Angeles. And you know there are like riots and because of riots all over. And I find it when I watch it, I find it's I don't think there is a bit. I don't know why there is a bit of the atmosphere of the Matrix in it somehow. You know, the plot is people can record what they see, and then so some people are like there is some contraband about that because some people want to watch some strange stuff,
Yeah.
and so there is you can sell like people are like recovering dead people videos and showing them and or rape stuff, like really twisted things. And the movie is made around that, you know, like a girl dies and she has a friend which is who's the hero, and he's a guy who does contraband and stuff, an ex-cop or something. And the whole atmosphere is I don't know why I find it very similar to the Matrix. Maybe it's because of the technology thing, but it's I rewatched it recently and felt like it could have been made like 15 years later than
Okay.
what it's been. I really recommend
I will
that
check
you
it
watch
out.
Yeah,
Makes
I've
me
not
Yeah.
seen
makes
that.
me makes me think of something else that I saw that it's
Mhm.
very similar in idea, and I think it's also in mid-90s, something like that. I should
Mhm.
research that. Robin Williams is Cutter. It's
Ah.
it's a pretty violent movie
Mhm.
actually. Speaks about pretty much the same idea. This guy um, extracts recorded footage from people's perspectives that is being they are being recorded their entire lives. This is an implant that does this that they put you in either before you're born or
Mhm.
shortly after your birth. He records you all your life. They
Mhm.
tell you around the age of 21 or something like that that you have this,
Mhm.
and after your funeral, they show you
Mhm.
clips about your life, and there are some shots that are insanely amazing in it. As a good idea, I don't think image quality wise is that good, but it's pretty much the same idea, and it's
Mhm.
very weird for me that I haven't connected these two. It's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's different because in Strange Days you have to wear this kind of helmet. You know, it looks like it's between a spider and these devices you use to massage your head.
Yeah.
And it's you just put it on your head and it records your what you see. And so there are actually some spying things. You know, some girls like hookers. They have these under wigs so they could record the clients and
course.
everything. So in case something happens to them, the footage can be used.
Blackmail.
So it's not really an implant, but it's more like no, it's not exactly like that. But another example of movie, I think it's been made in the 90s too. It's Existence Z.
Oh yeah. Oh,
That
yeah.
was a great one.
Which one?
And Existence Z with Jude Law. It's like about video
I
games,
think it was
immersive.
Existence or something like that. Yeah,
Existence Z. There is a big
Yeah, yeah,
Z
yeah.
in
I
the
know.
end.
Yeah, I know, but yeah.
And it's about immersive video games. You play the video games. You don't have a controller. You have some kind. It's a pod. It's a pod with zits and spots on it, and you just they manipulate it. But it's the pod is alive. You know, it's like stem cells or something,
Yeah.
and it's half alive, half. You know,
Huh.
it's,
Okay.
yeah, it's organic, but it's
course.
still electronic, and it's a bit of mixing. And you connect it, you connect yourself with a port, and then it's like completely immersive. And it's about what's real and what's not, and the hero
Okay. That
gets
sounds
caught
interesting
in the
for
game.
sure.
But it's not. I rewatched it too like 2 years ago, and it was fine to watch. It was fine.
Not to me.
The one movie I always remember when Matrix is mentioned is Equilibrium, which is like a mix between the Matrix and
It came out the
Fahrenheit 3.
Yeah,
Came out the year after.
1984, something like
It
that.
has-
No,
it
no,
has-
2000.
No, I think it was very
Yeah, but
close
the,
to
the,
the
the movie
Matrix.
90, the
Oh,
film,
oh, yeah, yeah.
well,
It's like
yeah.
1984
Yeah.
meets the Matrix because it's
Yeah.
guns,
Well, they
guns
tried to
blazing
copy
guys
some
and-
of the Wachowski's special effects that they had made for the Matrix.
Yeah, I don't
special.
think they tried to copy anything with the Matrix. It
No,
was
they did the bullet time. That was the idea that they
The
tried
bullet
to.
time?
The bullet time.
There is there bullet time in the
some sort of
Equilibrium?
a lot of movies
couple
try
of
to
scenes.
copy that. But
It's very choreographed, but I don't think there is any. There are slow mo moves and slow mo sequences at some point, but
That's
there
the
is no
idea.
like you can see bullets going that way.
No,
And-
no,
no.
that's the bullet time is not about that. The bullet time is slowing down the
Choreography.
pace so much so that the
Oh,
Matrix
yeah.
was the first one to do that because they have found the technical way to actually achieve that. Before that, it didn't really exist. So much so it didn't exist that the video game Max Payne, for example,
Yeah.
was the first one using this technique.
Yeah.
That was a
Yeah, but
sad
to,
game.
to me it was
Yeah,
like more
really
slow mo
something.
than bullet time in the
Bullet time
Equilibrium.
is slow mo. That's the point. It's slowed down to the point where you would see the bullet. It doesn't
Yeah,
mean
but
that you have
but
these.
to me slow mo is like it's not as slow as bullet time. You know,
Yeah,
it's
well,
it's just
I
slowed
think
down, but and
yeah, I get it.
I remember in Equilibrium, some parts, some sequences are slowed down, then back to normal speed, and it's very impressive, you know, because of these kata things, you know, and moving super fast and very choreographed, and it's very impressive. But I don't remember the movie as
For
something
some
that
reason,
has a lot
I
of
kind of
bullet
associate
time
it
stuff.
with
Yeah,
Matrix quite closely.
yeah, but
But yeah,
it's the
I was.
clothes. I mean, like long black jackets
It's
and
not just the effects. Maybe it's also the choreography of the action scenes. Maybe that also
But
reminds
it's
yeah,
me
it's
of
also
very
a similar
choreographed.
genre, and I think it was
it's true.
advertised as something similar
Resistance to
to the
the
higher power,
supreme
sure, a
whatever,
bit
and yeah.
utopistic or dystopic if you want, and
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
So I associate it very closely, and I did not like it at all.
really
When I first saw
Which
it,
did
it's
you
not a
like?
bad movie.
it's not a bad movie at all. When I watched it again, Equilibrium.
Which didn't you like?
Equilibrium.
Oh yeah.
The Matrix I love,
Hmm.
but when I saw Equilibrium, I was like, no, this looks
Well,
doesn't.
Equilibrium, I think there were a lot of very good elements, but it's just I find the end disappointing. Regarding the whole movie,
Right,
it's
right.
like, you know, the bad guy, the
I
black
remember.
guy,
Yeah.
how he dies, and the final fight and stuff. It looked very
Unconvincing.
yeah, very you know, it was like, yeah, so now it's like the last
Yeah.
half hour it switches to some regular action movie, you know, with you could tell what the end is, and in the beginning was the first part was pretty good, and it reminds me a bit of V for Vendetta, actually, you
Ah,
know,
yeah.
a
V
bit
for
there is
Vendetta.
a bit of that,
I
even in
remember
the
that.
imagery of the totalitarian
Yeah. There were a
figures.
lot of movies like that in that era, I think. Like a
Yeah.
span of 5 years, I can remember V for Vendetta,
Mhm.
Ultraviolet, which was
Oh yeah,
very
Oh,
similar to
that
this.
was
Equilibrium,
I watched it
The
twice,
Matrix.
Ultraviolet,
Yeah,
but it
I
was
remember these being quite similar.
I remember it as a pretty bad one.
Oh, yeah, it's a really bad one.
There's it wasn't like that with the movie with Charlize Theron, like
Yeah, Ultraviolet is a
Aeon
Kill Bill
Flux.
meets
Aeon Flux.
Aeon Flux
Yeah,
also,
that
yes.
one was bad. That one
I
was
always
bad.
thought that I loved this science fiction
Genre. I
It's
did too, of course.
it's not good actually. These
No.
aren't those that I
That's
deem
why
good.
that's why I say that the genres have a very different trajectory in terms of how they've developed over time.
Oh yeah,
And science fiction, in my opinion, has the best trajectory of all. Like right now, it's better than ever before. This is a really good time for science fiction.
Really?
I do think so.
which
Did you guys see
give me something from the last
Arrival?
5 years.
Arrival is enough to
Arrival.
beat most of them down, in my opinion.
No,
Arrival is a damn good science fiction.
it's
It's
don't
Not in
think
science
fairly
nor
deep.
it's
fiction.
a science fiction. It's what
it's
we were talking about
extremely
the other day. I
fiction,
think it's a
and
science
there's
fiction
a whole
frame.
lot of science in it.
It's a
It's a
frame,
sci-
but it's
it's
not
a science fiction frame, but
movie.
it's not a science fiction story.
Okay, well, let's go to that. It is definitely fiction because there's aliens.
Yeah, of course.
Well, sure.
That doesn't require, and it's also definitely science because it talks a lot about not just the way consciousness works, the way our brains work, but also the way. So anthropological science, which is usually discarded as not science,
Yeah,
but
it's,
it is
it's a
actually
movie about
science.
language. It's not a science fiction movie. There is a
about-
science fiction frame, but the movie
of
itself, the
course.
story, isn't science fiction. It's about language
But
and
anthropological
communication.
science is a main. Language and the way languages are processed by the brain is the main part, or at least a very important part of anthropological sciences, because that's how societies are formed. So the
Yep.
way languages influence our brain, or other way around,
Is that something proven?
is a big part of the.
Is that
movie.
something proven that how languages are formed is the basis of how societies are formed? I mean, is the
It's not proven in the sense that. So if I were to say it's proven, I would say you take away language, societies are not formed. You
so
add
is it a
languages
clear
to them.
theory?
No,
Oh.
yes, it is a very clear theory based on strong correlations between how even other animals, which we can study and say that they don't form. Like
You mean there is just so I'm sure I got this right. You mean there is a connection in between how language is formed and how it's articulated and the social structures of the people who speak the language. There is a connection to that into these.
no, what I'm saying is, yes, the more articulate languages have become over time have a direct correlation with the kind of societies that can be made, but that's a correlation. What we can say is based on studies done in animal is that animals that do form societies
Yeah.
or less stable societies than humans do, they do require a broader range of communication tools than just you know disagreeing and agreeing. That's not enough as a communication tool. So languages or some form of vocal expression of it has become really important. And in humans, although we can't experimentally do it because we don't have the tools to do it at this point, there's a strong correlation between how societies are structured just based on the way communication or language works in a given society. For example, the most ancient languages, so there's a link between how many words are present to describe a single idea and how many ideas can be presented with just a single word.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And
Makes
based
sense.
on these kind of parameters, you can guess or you can project how strong a society will be or how weak it will be. And these are models mostly because again we can't study the evolution of human society.
How would you control for
Yeah.
it? For most of it,
But, which is why I didn't say proof because it's not proven.
yeah.
But there is a strong theory for it for sure.
No, I'm sure it is. There is, because all my life I had this theory. No, I had this hypothesis that it is actually the case. You just have to go to Germany and see how their structure of language is that organized. I mean, except for the articles, that's an organized language. And you see them, it's like, yeah, those expressions they use when they start coupling words, that you have a word at the end
That's
like
exactly-
this
yeah,
one, and then you go to Berlin to the main avenue, and then you see that big size that everything is like this, but so perfectly organized.
Yeah, but I
Like,
mean,
yeah, that
in
makes
Berlin,
sense.
when you these, I can say some few things about what you said. You can actually make up words just adding things.
Yeah.
But in a lot of cases, there is actually a real word that doesn't look like that. That exists to describe these. That. And in Berlin, when you see these buildings like square ones, big avenues, that's the Soviets actually. That's the most ancient parts of Berlin, and that's the Soviets who built these, like Frankfurter Allee, or these like
Oh
very
no,
broad
I meant
streets
I
and-
meant a Berlin size that was reformed by the Nazis, for example. I think that's the best example of it. Actually, that's the very extreme of what ultra structuralization does to you. And as far as I understand European languages, German is one of the well organized ones. The one that has least exceptions to a rule, for example, when it comes to that, or
the
it's
grammar
pretty
and,
logical, and it's and
yeah, there is a logic, but there are declinations and
sure,
things,
but of course the language is always shifting.
Yeah.
But for example, it's you have different accents appropriated to different territories, but it's not as wild.
Well, it's even more than just accents. It's dialects. Sometimes
Yeah.
people from Munich they wouldn't understand someone from Hamburg.
Oh,
They
really?
don't speak because the dialects are very different. And it's not just an accent. Some words are changing. Some let's say syntax. Things are changing,
Now-
and there is a thing called the Hochdeutsch, which is the
Hochdeutsch. Oh yeah.
which is the German that people would speak like on the TV anchormans and thing,
okay.
and then there are like dialects, and they are very very different in some places. It's something we lost in France. I mean, here in Alsace we have a dialect. It's spoken by mostly old people, but and you have accents like in the south, in the north, very recognizable ones. But we lost our dialects, and in German it's very
Preserved.
not disturbing, but it's surprising.
Oh, he said preserved. He said
It's
preserved.
preserved over there. The
Yeah,
dialects
but
have
when you
been
go
preserved.
there for the first time and you learn like the whole Dutch at school or something, or in books, and they speak something like, what the fuck is that language? In some regions, it looks like what they speak in Leitzenberg, and it's or they really take the accent and the way to pronounce things that in the countries nearby, like for example in Netherlands, or it's very destabilizing.
Destabilizing.
Destabilizing, yeah. It's
Yeah, but to bring it back
Yeah.
to Arrival and how I think that is still a large piece of science used in the movie to as a major plot point is that, so there's a theory in physics, and I won't go too much into detail, is that a system cannot process, so operators of a system cannot process operators higher than, which means if you are at this state of level, you cannot understand a level that is several states or even one state above you. So
if you don't have the language to.
if you live in a 3-dimensional world, you cannot understand a 4-dimensional or 5-dimensional world.
Yeah, you don't have the capacity.
Yeah,
So-
and in terms of when it comes to language, that is how we communicate with each other. You don't have a word for it, you cannot explain it or sometimes even understand it. And there are several stories that go anecdotally with this. For example, it is believed that when Europeans first reached the Native Americans, first met the Native Americans in Americas, Native Americans had no idea what that is and they didn't know how to describe it. So they were unable to convey the message of threat. I don't know how true this is. It goes anecdotally well with the theory that
All right.
having the capacity to process something comes from the words we have to imagine or describe it. So in Arrival, the major plot point is that only when she learns their language can she process the dimension where time is more predictable than
she
in
doesn't
ours.
learn the language. They really change the way her
She-
brain works.
yeah,
It's
they
like
have to do
she
that.
doesn't learn it because
She
she
tries
can't,
to.
but
She
can't.
tries to.
She
Yeah.
struggles to learn
Yeah,
the
she
language
struggles.
until
Ultimately, they're like, "We just give it to you." But either way, that is the plot point: is that only when she can
But
understand that language.
that is changing your brain literally.
yeah.
As that's what I wanted to ask you guys, because I have a very particular sensation about tingling sensation in my pants when I speak a different language. That I'm a different person.
Keep
Are
it down,
you?
Tiger. Different person.
I think
Yeah.
my
when you speak
voice,
different
my
languages.
voice might change, but I'm not a
Oh yeah,
different
that does.
person.
But are you a different person to how you perceive yourself? Are you different in English than in French?
I don't think so.
I see you
I think
different.
you see me different, but,
Oh, yeah.
but it doesn't mean that I am.
I'll come
Well,
back
it
to
con-
this point later.
I don't think I'm different. It's just that I might be less accurate in terms of how I think and how I just
It's not just the expression of yourself even. You sure you regress more, and humor changes and approaches change because the vocabulary is different. But I'm not talking about that necessarily. It's not just the regression; it's behind that. It's I'm a different person in Hungarian than I'm in English or in
I
French.
don't think I am. I don't think I am a different person. But then again, I'll ask this question: what language do you dream in?
it depends.
Yeah, I
Is
don't have a
is there a
language
language that
that
you dream in mostly, or rather you
When-
favor in your dreams?
When I
for
was in
example?
school, in Berlin, when I was living in Berlin, I was
Yeah,
dreaming
when I was
in
studying
English.
also,
I was
but no.
dreaming in
You?
English.
It's a mix.
Mm.
I don't think I dream in any language, to be honest. I don't remember. I don't have really conversations. I have exchange of thoughts, and
Yeah. Your thoughts. Essentially, what I'm asking is the favorite language for your brain to process information. Is it? For me, it's English for sure. It's been English for
definitely not any
for a
language.
long time. For a long time that I can remember, it's in English. Like when I think to myself or I think ahead of time or trying to process, it's in English. It's
Yeah.
very clear to me that it is in English. So the way I think, and this is where the idea comes in, is that the way you think is influenced by language. Because now that I think in English, the arrangement of my thoughts is subject, verb, object, or passive voice, active voice. It's changed because of the language in which I'm thinking. Because of that, the way I plan things will also probably be influenced by the language that I'm thinking in. So your personality could be influenced by this, but in my opinion, I don't personally change based on if I express myself in a different language. But that also again is majorly because when I speak my mother tongue, for example, now my thoughts are still in English. and I'm basically rapid fire translating it to my mother tongue.
I
So
don't
my
have that.
personality does not.
I had that
My
when I was
personality
when I
does
was
not change that
when I
much.
was like 98% of the time in Berlin. I was mostly speaking English, and when I was going home, not I still have that nowadays. But on these false friend stuff like versatile, versatile in French, it means a completely
Same.
different thing. And I was. It's not that I had an accent or something, but I was stumbling on words sometimes just to find the right word to express what I wanted to say. But it was for more complicated words. But what I still have nowadays, and it's very strange to me because I speak mostly French these days, except with you guys. But when I
Well, we are
when
in
I'm
France,
hanging
so
out with you only, like when I'm not working, uh, yeah, it's mostly English because I don't see many people. But when I'm working, it's mostly French. So these days I'm dreaming in French. But something is very strange that when I'm losing conscience, for example, you're in bed with your girlfriend or something, and she talks to you, but you're already half asleep, or you're half awake or something, and you say nonsense things. When I say these, I say them in English like 90% of the time, and that's super weird. Even
Okay.
when
Especially if your girlfriend doesn't understand English, it's probably really complicated.
yeah, like the other day I was on the couch with the girl, and she was talking to me, but I was super tired, so I was like half asleep, and I answered in English, and she talked in French, and I answered in English, and I was like, wow.
Ah,
She's a friend, let's say a friend that I don't see often or something, but I was just yeah, well, like you're falling asleep, and I said something I don't even remember what I said, but it was like,
Yeah, the way language influences us, or rather, I think it's a give and take. Like the road goes both ways. The way we think might influence which language we prefer, or and or the language that we prefer determines eventually the way we process information and the
now
way we think.
that's exactly what I mean. Because
And
I think but it does influence then the outcome of your personality. And if we
yeah,
take into account only how you are perceived by your outer world and not your thoughts when you think about yourself. So if your definition of yourself is how the outer world sees you, like your definition of everybody else, literally, because you don't see what's in their head, so you're not influenced by their thoughts, then if that's the case and the outcome changes in your behavior because you're speaking a different language, then you become a different person by definition. And I think that's the
wait,
case.
I really do think I'm not
the
different.
premise that you set up is that if the definition of your personality is based on what others think of you.
No, how the outside world perceives you, let's say that.
Yeah, how
Okay,
the outside world perceives
easier
you
to say
and
it. Let's
what
like
you are, it's two
based on
different
what
things.
you do and not what you think.
Yeah,
So based on your actions instead of your thoughts, because the thoughts, I think, I don't think those thoughts matter as much as people tend to think. I mean, it was a big revelation to me psychologically to understand that it's okay to think shit things on
Of course.
it, and it's gonna happen, and the brain is like a reflex organ that is there to, it doesn't describe you, a shit thought doesn't describe you any better than
No.
like I saw it in a Peaceful Warrior. It doesn't describe you better than a freckle on your nose. It's a part of you, but it's not, until you act on it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but do you think I don't think I act different because I speak in English
well, I
instead
do.
of French.
That's for sure. My humor is very different, for example, in
My
French.
humor doesn't change. I mean, what I do, it's driven by what I have inside of me. It's not driven by how I think people perceive me. And yes, of course, it does sometimes when I don't know.
But let's
in the
go on
workplace,
this.
let's say, and you wanna like I don't know. You wanna show that you're capable and things like that. Of course, you act depending on what you assume that people might think of you, but I don't know what I'm saying or something I'm reacting to. It's emulated by for example what you say, guys, but it's still my ideas, my beliefs, and that doesn't change with the language.
Like,
Yeah.
no, this is an interesting point we can carry forward is that when you say personality, it's an amalgam of a whole lot of attributes. And I think, I might be wrong, not all of them are associated with the language in which we express ourselves. For example, sense of humor, definitely associated with the language we use.
You have to have vocabulary, and if your
Funny
vocabulary
can
is
be
different,
funny in French or funny in English. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, of
Absolutely
course.
not.
So
But-
sense
but-
of humor, it will vary for sure when you change your
Yeah, but
language.
for you might find the same kind of things funny.
No,
as long as
no, you don't.
As long as you get the joke. For example,
no,
if you're,
that's exactly my point.
Yeah,
That's
getting the
exactly.
joke
Yeah,
Getting the
requires-
joke doesn't understanding it doesn't mean that it touches you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
but I mean,
requires.
if you like jokes, I don't know about poo or something, you're
But
gonna like them
translated
either
jokes
in
never
French or
work.
in
No.
English, as long as you're
I
able
don't.
to
There's-
understand the joke.
I think there's a very good reason why translated jokes almost never work. It's because they're translated.
It's
Sense of humor
Yeah, but
is
even-
related
even-
very
but
closely
that's,
to language. I
Like
think.
it was with this silly joke I sent you the other days. What's the difference between tuna and a piano?
What's the difference? I don't know.
You can tune a piano, but you can piano tuna. That doesn't work in French. But
How
in
could
French,
it?
you have other game of words. But apart from that, a joke, because it's that
joke
that,
is a
that
wordplay,
that
so
is a
yes,
joke
essentially.
about, that is a joke about the form, but a joke about an idea works as well
Yes.
in two
But
different languages.
but in practice, it
So if you-
it doesn't.
If
That's
you find
that's
the
my point.
idea of a joke funny, you're gonna like it either in
I
French
I,
or,
dis-
or
I
whatever.
wholeheartedly disagree.
Wait.
In my
I
case,
think
it
he's
doesn't.
onto something in the sense that humor, in terms of wordplay or
Yeah, in terms of
describing something,
form.
could be language, but there, I can think of humor which does not require a strict expression or understanding. For example, situational comedy is often funny just because. And it doesn't
Yeah.
require much. You can be a funny person just
Yeah, but
because of the
Look at
way you
Mr.
walk.
Bean.
Yeah, but
It
there's-
doesn't say a word.
The
but
way
it's
you
funny
walk
for
could be
everyone,
funny.
you
It
know,
doesn't require
you-
language.
Sure,
you-
but
you-
there's no language involved, so it's pointless to bring it up as an. As
no,
a-
but that means
No.
you can. When it comes to
some
the
humor
idea,
are independent,
when
obviously.
it comes to the form, the languages are important. When it's situational, it's not important. But I think when it comes to the ideas, it's like, but then it's the same with humor or being fucked off by what someone says or something. You would be as pissed as
I'm not. I really am not. And that's exactly my point. I was, for example, here coming home, somebody yells to me on the street. I'm not offended by it, even if it's the horrifying shit that in English I would get
But
nervous about.
maybe if you would grasp exactly what, because if someone
Yeah.
yells at me in
But
in
someone
German,
yells at
in
you is,
German, you know it's insulting, but it's about
It doesn't touch me though.
it doesn't touch you because maybe you've not been living in France long enough, so you know how insulting and how and
No,
the
I
insult
do.
that is
I do
behind,
understand it.
you know,
It just doesn't touch me because I require this fraction of a second to translate,
Yeah, but that's
and
the
that
thing.
allows me to calm me down.
For example,
calm myself
let's
down.
say I'm having a chat with a flat earther. It's gonna piss me off as much in French than in English. I'm gonna find this person stupid.
Okay, but there's a
Well,
common theme here.
that's-
There's a
that's
common theme here.
exaggerated, but-
The example you gave is very, very good in the sense that it allows me to dissect it. You get yelled at by someone in French over here in France, you don't get offended, but if it were to happen in English, you would probably feel more nervous, is what you said. That's because yelling at you requires a language. It's completely dependent on the language you are adhering to at the moment. If someone shoves their fist in your face in whatever language, because it doesn't require language,
That's not language.
you'd be equally,
appropriate.
yeah. So your personality did not change. You'd be offended
is
or
body language,
insulted
but-
based on
No,
body
I
language
would
anyway.
be. No, okay.
It's just that your understanding changed. Your personality didn't.
No, that's no. Yes, okay, but the outcome changes
Well,
because
yeah,
I'm not going
because
to react as violently.
GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. Whatever input you get in any given language, you would respond in an equal or opposite
No,
way.
absolutely not. I'm saying exactly the opposite. It's that if you're in Hungary, you send me away in a way. I'm getting pissed. I'm going to react. If I get the same thing in French, even though I understand it, it's just like, fuck off. You know, it's just like it doesn't. I don't care.
But it's
Yeah,
based
but
on
maybe
language.
it's not about the language. It's because
What else
it's
is it
about
about?
being in France. Just being in France. Maybe you.
I've been here for 10 years.
Yeah,
it's fine.
you've been here for 10 years, but
I
maybe,
understand when somebody
I'm not
says
saying you
shit.
don't understand. I'm just saying it's France. You're Hungarian. It's just for example, I'm way more tolerant with stupid people when I'm in Germany than when I'm in France.
Sure. because you have to
But it's not about the language. It's just that
takes you
even
processing
if
power.
even if I live there, it's not my country. I still feel
I'll-
like I'm a guest there. You know, and it has something.
I don't feel like
It
a
has
guest.
something to do with the way I manage the. I don't know the
You think I feel
signal.
like a guest here?
No,
I'll
I
try
don't
to
think so,
illustrate.
but you
I'll
don't-
try to illustrate my point in a slightly different, based on taking forward the same example.
Mhm.
Do you think that a person? Okay, so for example, two people. One gets easily, or rather, one gets offended because something mean was said to him, and the other is offended because someone tried to attack him.
Mhm.
Right? Would you say both these people are offended?
It depends on the definition of offense.
In this context, it is the most obvious one. So yes,
Sure.
yeah.
Let's
In
say.
another situation, someone gets offended by physical threats, but not by vocal threats. Would you say this person is
But
as
that has nothing to do with language.
No, that has everything to do with personalities, and we are trying to associate personalities with languages. If we are going to do that, we have to first
Yeah.
establish what personality means.
Yeah,
there is-
exactly.
but
That
there
was
is also
that was my
body
point.
language
If
or
it
something,
if
but-
if my behavior as the as mm, if my behavior changes as the outcome, and we regard that as me instead of my thinking included, then I am a different person because I have a different outcome in reaction, even though it's the same content in information. It's just a different language.
Unless you respond differently to someone physically trying to attack you, I don't think your personality
I
has
do.
changed. Your
I
understanding
did
has changed.
several times.
With no words
Let's say-
involved?
Yes. No. No. Not word. No words involved. No.
If there are words involved, your understanding has changed. So your personality didn't change automatically, it changed because your understanding changed.
Exactly. But that means that I'm a different person.
Because your understanding changed, not because
Exactly.
of personality. The
No.
so, flowchart.
Personality changing is an outcome of it, not a reason for it. I am a different person as an outcome of the
your
different
understanding.
language.
Yeah, so you're a different.
That's what I said.
you
If
are-
you're speaking a
yeah.
different language or you're a different person,
but here's
I
the,
am.
Here's the thing, right? In that case, you stop at understanding because it's the immediate cause of it. Your personality changes as an outcome of X number of things that could happen in between.
Yeah.
But the primary thing is because your language changed, your understanding changed.
Yeah.
Language doesn't change personality; it changes your understanding, which is
maybe
obvious.
we should make a different. For example, if I go in Germany or in
But
a- in a-
regardless of which language, your personality doesn't change. Only your understanding.
It depends.
changes.
It depends on your definition of
situational
personality.
or it's in the idea. But because, for example, if I go in Germany, I'm gonna be different because I act different. I'm gonna be in a situational context. I'm gonna be different for other people, but my ideas aren't gonna change. So, in terms of idea, I'm gonna be the same person. It's just that
I just started with the fact that we disregard that part because that is perceived by nobody else but you. So that's just
yeah,
self-report.
but it doesn't mean it's not you. If your ideas,
I think it does.
For
To me,
example-
in this, we have to decide whether we include that into this conversation or not. Because the moment we include that
No, let's
into,
exclude
I don't agree with myself either. What I'm
exclude
saying is that behavioral outcome changes, and we disregard anything that goes on in your head. If you just look at the behavioral changes, like you would look onto your friends, for example, how they would react in such a situation, you don't know what's going on in their heads.
I'm not.
Then yeah,
I am not what you perceive
That's
of me.
true.
no, but I think you are what you do, not what you think.
Yeah, but if
No.
if I am what I do, I'm gonna be like 1,000 different people because you are gonna perceive what I do in a different way than Archit's gonna perceive what I do.
Sure,
So,
but you also can just limit yourself to judge your own personality and behavior after your behavior and not taking into account
Yeah, but there is
what-
a
No, but
Yes,
this is all very interesting, and I will definitely be coming back to this when we talk about the personality test, for example. But the main point is, let's say we work only in the premise that you established, which is that the idea that other people have about you defines your
No,
your
I
sense
didn't
of
say that.
personality.
That's not what I wanted to say. What
You
I wanted
are-
to
you
say,
said you are what
even
you do.
you yourself, judge yourself by the stuff that you do, not what you think or want or feel.
If you judge yourself by the stuff that you do, your personality is quite hard set in your perspective.
Not
not
but you are
influenced
then you're on par with everybody else then, because you're not having a bias just because you have seemingly an insane amount of supplementary information to take into account that you will never get from anybody else. You will never know what's going on in somebody else's head. So why are you taking into account when you are judging yourself? It's stupid. Shouldn't. So what you should judge yourself by, in my estimation, is the stuff that you actually do, not what goes through your mind or what you wish for, right?
If that was true, for example, when somebody kills another person when there is a trial, they wouldn't try to decide if the person is like, responsible for what he's done, if he's crazy or not.
In your mind, it's always justified what you do.
It's not just about what you do.
No,
it's often justified what you do.
Your example makes no sense, because there are two kinds of people, and we very much distinguish these kind of people. Ones who are crazy, who have not the capacity to organize their thoughts around, and the second one who calmly decide to kill somebody, and the act is different, but the
intent is what makes these two people
exactly
different. Yes,
the outcome is different also.
but the outcome is different.
People.
If you stab,
Arthur, it is different.
If you stab someone like 15 times and you do that willingly, or if you're like a schizo,
you're disregarding parts of your arbitrary. Let me finish. The part of your example, it's the outcome is absolutely and completely different. It's just somebody dies. Okay, if you
somebody dies in the exact same way,
but there's more to that. Exactly because you can't see into somebody else's head, so they have to come up with the reasoning behind this murder from circumstantial evidence.
Yeah, but if what you say is true, like if we are what others,
no, I'm supposing this as an abstract idea. I'm not saying that we are this or that. You are what you decide to be. I'm saying this way you can eliminate a lot of bias that I see in other people. That is a lot of source of other misery. Is that you think that you are your thoughts, and I don't think that matters as much as people tend to think. That's all I'm saying. I don't think they matter until you actually manifest them. That's all I'm saying.
People, for example, I think the intent is crucial, even if I
just said that it is.
Even in the way people are gonna receive what the signals you're sending. If if you say something, I mean, just a joke or something, they're gonna be either offended or not.
Arthur, I'm not talking about that.
But
I'm talking about the difference whether you have intent and actual murder. That's a very big difference.
What I'm talking about is
about I know. We're talking about different things.
The same outcome. The exact same outcome. Why
we're not talking about the same thing. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. My idea is that just because you have murderous thoughts doesn't mean you're a murderer until you actually do it.
Yes.
But some people who have murderous thoughts judge themselves differently because they think that this is a descriptor of themselves, that they have these thoughts. I think that's stupid. I'm arguing for that, not against what you say. I agree with, is that intent matters, but I'm not talking about the situation where the outcome is different, where the outcome is the same. I'm talking about a situation where the outcome is different. The thought is the same, but one of them is actually executed and the other one isn't. And some people judge themselves to be on the other category, but when it would come to the judgment of somebody else around them, since they don't see into their heads, the only thing they can take into account is what the other people have done.
Well,
see? So it's a different of judgment.
Considering that, I wouldn't say that I'm a different person when I think in English or when I think in French. The exact same way that kids, they are the same person when they're at school and with the parents, but they don't swear with their parents. They behave differently, but still they are the same person. So in my opinion, for regarding myself, I don't think I'm a different person. I just react differently, but I'm the same person.
It's an environmental factor which accounts for this, because I was just going to bring up another very similar example. You may be generally not a nervous person, but when you're in a foreign country with foreign language, you do become automatically nervous. Doesn't mean your personality has changed.
I don't think that's
to make
true
you
in my
It's
case,
true for almost all people. Outliers abound, but when you
Because
become
you
nervous
haven't
based
been
on
here for long enough. That's why it goes away.
I'm
after
sure
a
it
while.
applies quite universally though. So when you are nervous in new
I'm
circumstances,
not nervous anymore. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So don't make it universal when it's
No, no,
not
no.
the case.
Universal doesn't mean applies to every single individual.
Okay,
It
so
means applies to enough majority that you can say it's a
I
universal.
don't think that's true either.
I do think when you're in strange circumstances, you get nervous. It's
Why
quite
would you be in a
natural.
strange circumstance when you've been in the same circumstance for long enough and it's safe?
For long enough? No, that's why I said you move to a country of a foreign language, foreign meaning that you don't understand
It's
it.
English and French is always going to be foreign to me, for
Yeah.
example. But doesn't mean I feel nervous about it.
Now you don't.
Yeah. So
But that's. I think you missed my example entirely.
yeah, okay. I'll let you finish your example. Then we
I
talk.
grew up in India, came to France.
Mhm.
I may not have ever been nervous in India, but the day I came here, I was hella nervous. That doesn't mean my personality is now a nervous individual. It just means I'm reacting to the environment around me. That's the point that he was also making, which is that our personality is dynamic, but the
Yeah, but you're
wholesome,
bringing up an example that that is
it is separate from the issue you raised.
absolutely. So it's not a
Absolutely.
good idea.
We somehow have strayed to this point.
Let's say it's exactly the same when you are at work and when you are not at work. You're a different. You act differently. But
Oh yeah, I think you're a different person then too. Sure.
Yeah.
I don't
No,
think
Absolutely.
True. This is true.
Your
I don't
coworkers
know
will
how-
judge you very differently than your mother.
I don't know how we have strayed to this point, but these all points are true. If we try to trace it back to the original point, which was that does language change your personality in the sense that, okay, yeah, does language change your personality? That was the initial question. But I am still stuck at the point where how do you say this is your personality? For example,
Do you feel different? That's what I'm asking.
I don't, but that's anecdotal and
It's
personal.
fine. I'm asking for a personal opinion. There's
In
nothing
that
to
matter,
measure
it's,
here.
it's the end of the discussion because yes, he doesn't, I don't.
I do. I really do. I have a different sense of humor, for example. Very different. Very different way of entertaining people around me. Different conversation routes that I would take to prove an argument. Different ways of researching subjects.
But
That makes sense. Not
When it comes to fixing my bike, for example, I tend to avoid anything that's written in French, even though we are in France, and most of the, but because it's scattered in thought compared to that. But when I'm going to compose something, I'd rather think in French now than in English, because English is a bit too structured for the kind of liberty that I want to take with it. See, so it's a bit of a mix. So when you ask me whether I dream in any language, I don't think I dream in any language. I don't think there's a language involved to that. I don't remember any conversation I've ever had in my
You don't
dream.
need to have conversations.
But
in
I
dreams.
also have a different understanding of languages, and I also think that music is also a language that I master probably better than any other language that I speak. I'm less articulate in it because the vocabulary is smaller, but yeah, probably. So it's a very hard, it's a tough question for me to
Yeah.
answer.
For some reason, I guess I got confused there. I thought you want an analysis of this association between language and personality. If you
I do.
go to that end, yeah. If you go to that end, then I would need hard definitions of personality. We already know what language is. So that's what I was chasing. Is what do you mean when you say your personality changes?
Do you feel
define-
different? Do you define yourself differently?
Yeah. So the idea was that do you feel that you're a more outgoing person versus not outgoing, or a more awkward
Yeah.
person versus
Yes,
not awkward?
yes,
things like
stuff
those.
like this. Yes.
Different languages don't seem to affect me. Different environments immediately affect me, as it would to some people or most people.
So
But
if you met people who came from France, no, if you met people who came from your hometown here, you wouldn't behave differently to them.
no,
No. Then what?
I-
How
I
you
am-
behave with us?
for example, the first time I met people here who did not look like me, did not speak the same language as me, I didn't react.
who?
Anyway, I can't match. I did not react in a manner that was less friendly. I generally don't, and it's not even something that I try to avoid doing. Like it's not like I'm actively thinking, okay, let's be more friendly or less friendly with this person. So in that sense, I don't think my personality changed, even though I was not able to understand what the other person was saying. because I do think personality is not limited to your expression and understanding. It is a much wider attribute than just understanding and expression. These are two important things in the way other people perceive
You don't think you approach women differently, for example, in English than in your own home?
Yeah, I don't approach women in my hometown.
Oh, well, then you are different.
I don't
in
think I
English.
do. For in my case, I don't think I do. I don't think I approach women. I don't. I'm not used to approach women like picking up on women, anyways. But I don't think.
Well,
Let's say with a. Not
okay.
really. No, I'm not the kind of guy who has pickup lines or something. You know, I can talk with a woman, but I'm not. I'm not gonna go in a bar. When I go in a bar and I'm alone, it's to have a drink or something. I'm not gonna go in the bar, spot a girl, and say, okay, I'm gonna pick up
Somehow
that girl.
you are the guy with the most experience.
Yeah, but I don't pick up on girls. I don't go in a
No,
place and say, okay,
you don't
I'm
pick up girls. Pick
No.
up on girls. That means
yeah, sorry, yeah,
yeah.
I don't pick up girls. Let's say, and I don't have the intent to pick up girls. But anyways,
maybe that's why it works.
yeah. But thing is, let's say I am with a girl and things are going well or something. I don't think I'm gonna talk or about different things in English than in French. Because it's about, well, for example, if you want to, I don't know, if you want to get laid or have a girlfriend or whatever your plans are with that girl, it doesn't. I don't think that in my case, let's say, the language doesn't matter. I want to show the same things about me and hide maybe the same things. So I don't think I'm gonna approach her differently or talk with her differently.
Okay. I know I have
But
sex differently in different languages,
the
for
context
example.
though is very important.
Very.
For example, I know that I wouldn't speak with a girl the same way here than, I don't know, in Sweden, for example. Even if it's in English.
Why?
Because I know that the rules may depend on where I am. For example, I would act. I don't know. It's all in the intent. If I wanna offend someone or I don't want to offend someone, I will act accordingly to the rules of the place I am at the moment.
Rules of engagement.
You know,
are
it's
different.
about it's purely situational. Like,
I understand the logic, but it's just I don't know how would you acquire that information at all.
well, you know, it's
Trial and error.
yeah. Nowadays, for example, if I go in, I don't know, Iran, I know
Well, I
that
mean-
the rules are going to be very different than here. It's not. It's, let's say,
Okay, and then
let's
what?
say not for the most subtle ones. Let's say for the you know, the big lines. When you go in a foreign country, you know that people are going to be different. And
Sure.
and
No, I
yeah,
agree.
so I would act differently.
How? How differently? That's my question. You can't. That's my point.
You know, for example, if I go in Japan and I go in a restaurant, I know that I don't have, I shouldn't stick my chopsticks like vertically in the bowl. I know that because it refers to the incense.
That has nothing to do with social interaction.
Yes, because it's very rude there. It's super rude. I would do that
I didn't
here.
know
I
that.
wouldn't care much, but if I go there, you know, it's something I wouldn't do.
I had no idea.
So, for example, you change from not caring about whether whether it's considered rude to caring about it just because your environment changed.
Yeah,
I guess that's
the
point.
I wouldn't shit on the streets in India.
Yeah, but
because
okay. But that's
You could and get away with it.
Yes, but still, I wouldn't do that.
I
But,
make a lot of
but
jokes
yeah,
about
I would-
India,
I would-
but
I-
it's
let's
not
say
happening
I would
there.
adapt myself to my environment.
nice.
Let's say I would adapt myself to my environment, so my actions wouldn't be received differently than how I send them, because I want to be understood the way
It might be my question then, how that's not articulated clearly enough that I'm asking, or I might be just not willing to accept your answer. But that's a low-level social adaptation that, of course, you would do differently. I behave a bit differently here than I would in Hungary. Sure, we talked about this last time, and it kind of sucks that it comes up. I have a problem with how the French male-female relationships are organized, because I really have a hard time understanding what's the difference between how you people function and me, but it doesn't really work out. That's one of the reasons, for example, why in all my relationships that I had, well, not all, but majority of my relationships here, I have chosen to speak English because it's a lot more clarity, and I'm a better person in English than in French. In French, it's there's a sleaziness to it that I'm not happy about.
I think the next
You
best
mean-
thing that can happen in this podcast is get a French girl and to talk here, and then it'll be
I-
much more productive as a discussion.
It is
Because
already planned.
I find it quite improbable that the three of us could put our head together and come up with a way to.
I'm actually planning to bring
resolve
on
that.
somebody who has who has experience with me.
No, if anyone were ever to answer your question, it would be
I'm
A
interested
large-
in your opinion.
a
There's
large
nothing-
number. No. I'm offering my opinion on this. Is that a large number of French women? If those are that's the demographic that you're interested in approaching in a conversation. That's the only way I would say. Because my opinion about the way we approach change is quite slightly different, not entirely, but slightly different. Yes, you do change based on where you are because of the etiquettes and everything.
You have to.
But and this applies to any strangers, not just not in terms of like you're looking for a girlfriend, friend, or guy, girl, doesn't matter. Is that your core personality shouldn't change so much as the mindfulness of who you're talking to, in the sense that, oh, I'm approaching someone from a rural village in India, I am going to act different. But that's not because I'm not going to act as a different person. I'm going to express myself differently. So that
Doesn't that
Is
make
it
you a
a
different
distinct-
So
person?
the information is
this is the key of the question that I asked.
Exactly. I
I
understand.
don't think
and
it does, but you do think it does.
Well, yeah, because if it were about somebody else, you would say they behave like a different
Yeah,
person.
but you are not a different person. It's just that you express yourself differently.
Depends on the definition of a person.
Which is quite debatable.
And in this, no, it's
I-
once we accept the predication, which we didn't. That's why we have the difference in opinion. Then it's not debatable. But it's
Well, no, I mean,
no, we have different
That's
ideas.
called settling a debate.
But how I look upon all other people and how I assess their personality is by looking at what they do. Very often, more often than about what they say, for example.
fairly everyone, yeah.
Except yourself, because
Yeah.
you take it into account what you think. And I think it's a bias.
No, wait. I don't think that. I think I take into account what I do. It's just that I don't know if this is a point that is being missed or it's understated, is that what we do always has a justification in our ideas. Always. Even the worst of murderers usually has, I wouldn't say all of them, the outliers, forget the outliers, the ones who are crazy and schizophrenic. Everyone who does commit a crime or a murder has a justification. If someone thinks they're a good person today and they commit a crime tomorrow, they're not going to start thinking automatically they're a bad person. They're going to think, oh, I did it because, so I'm still a good person. So your
That's the
action,
bias you have to get rid of.
that's a
I mean,
bias that's inherent to everyone.
Yes, well, you have the cognitive capacity to voluntarily get rid of it. It's not easy. I'm not saying that.
Regardless,
You
the
have to.
personality that is established in your mind is based a lot on your actions as well, because you justify them.
Do you really, Matt?
You
do
justify them. You don't rely on other people's
I
opinion of
agree
it.
with you. I just disagree with the concept that it should be natural. I don't think it should.
do you really just judge people on their actions?
There's nothing else you can judge them by.
I think
There's
wh-
literally
why-
nothing
why-
else.
Yeah, but why talking to people then?
No, I agree on that. I agree with Matt. Is that
No,
you do
like-
judge them.
Like if you somehow
Talking is doing something.
yeah.
You're doing way more
Yes,
than
but-
what you're talking
yes, but
about. And I'm
talking-
more interested in your
The
reactions.
difference
than-
between talking like with someone and just looking at what someone does is that with talking you can get the idea that's behind the action. So that's not just
No.
doing something. Having a conversation with someone.
That's very rare in my estimation.
that's
That
a
you get you get their perception of themselves, which is biased. It is an important pool of information. I just wouldn't call it reliable at all.
It's not.
And it's
But
not.
neither is someone else's perception of you.
Yeah, but my perception about their actions,
It's not reliable at all either.
it's way more reliable to
To
me.
you only.
Well, yeah, but I'm the only one who matters when it comes to a
So it's
conversation.
strange that when you ascribe personality to yourself, you're depending on how other people might perceive it.
No, you misunderstood.
Instead, if you were to define it based on how you justify it, your actions, your personality would be a much more, or at least a rather more concrete and more reliable form, because otherwise you're saying
But it wouldn't be true because nobody else sees
Doesn't
me that way.
matter.
Yeah, it does because a social context matters.
in social context we are all far too different from each other to make it
Not
reliable
really.
anyway.
No, I don't agree
We
with
quite
that.
are. This is why I said when the personality test was a subject we were discussing, is that I am fairly critical of personality tests, because human psyche, most psyches, are not something you can put into percentiles and boxes, because it depends a lot on the examples you're talking about. It's so variable.
That's I tend to agree with him, because when we talked about when I took the test, and I really had to think, for example, to answer one of the questions, I really had to think about all the different situations where, that the where I could find some answers for that question, and then somehow make an average answer for that. So yeah, I think you're right on that. It's
Yeah, and I think I do believe that when you're asked a question and you responded, that's why my response to it was that this gave me an accurate representation of how I see myself. Is because when I'm asked a question, I would say, this is what I would do. It's just that I'm not in that situation right now, and I don't know what other parameters are at play. Because of which the human psyche is such a varied spectrum that I don't think you can divide it into percentiles. I strongly
But you
believe
can
that.
you can ask some fairly
Diverse
precise,
questions,
diverse
and
but still
yes,
precise,
yes,
and it's.
1,000
But
question
he
form
said,
with,
Again,
said
your
in the
debate-
beginning of the test, he said that
it's-
it's not like
yeah,
absolute truth
and
or something.
that's a
it's not,
disclaimer.
and-
indication.
And
of-
nobody,
That's a disclaimer, yeah.
nobody stated the opposite. So
That's a
I don't.
disclaimer.
If you think you're arguing with me, we agree
I'm not
exactly
arguing
on.
with you at all.
I
I'm
agree
arguing with the personality
wholeheartedly
test.
with what you said, but it
Yeah.
doesn't contradict what I stated.
No, what you're stating is that your personality is, or rather, your idea of personality would be reliable if you base it on how other people.
It's
perceive
not what
your
I said.
actions.
Again.
But it's fairly
You said
confusing.
that
what
No.
you're
you
saying.
are.
Yes.
You
So okay,
are-
let's
Because
let's make
I don't
it
know if
clear
the
what I
articulation
said.
is a problem or the concept is vague, but it's difficult.
Oh
to
no, it's not. I
pinpoint.
might.
You
put
think
it
you are
wrongly.
what you do, not what you think, and what people perceive of what you're doing.
Yeah, where do
That's what
other
you're-
people
is
come
that-
in
Is
play?
that what you're saying?
Nowhere. I don't know why you
Okay.
guys insist on it. I
I
might
don't
have
know.
expressed myself very
Somehow.
badly there, because no, when you look upon how you perceive somebody else,
Mhm.
you can take into account what they say, how they behave, what they do, how they smell, how they look, stuff like this, right? When you think about yourself, I have the impression that most people are having a different way of analyzing themselves, and they tilt towards a lot of negativity because they have, I don't know, a very arbitrary way of thinking about or reacting in their minds about things.
They just have more clues about themselves or what's going on in their heads than what other people have in their heads. So, it's
I don't think, for example, one
you have
person
more
has-
informations when you think about what you are. You have more informations because you have what's in your
I don't
head,
think
but-
that's what I'm debating. I don't think you do.
No, so
I don't think you do. I think that's a insanely powerful illusion that you have, but it's not the
I would
case.
say it depends on if you are. You might be right in some way. To me, like it really depends on if you're. I think it requires an effort to do that, but you
Yes.
can look at what's in your head and what you are actually doing, and in a let's say in an objective way. You could do that. You could try it. You will never be like 100% objective about what you're doing.
You can
or
try,
what you're
yeah.
thinking.
You could. I
But-
think with this method, with disregarding what you think about what you do or what you feel, and you are just purely trying to reduce how you would perceive yourself as if you were one of your friends. I think you will get a more accurate description of who you are than when you take your thoughts and intuition and emotions into account. And that's
but
what I'm
that-
arguing
It
for.
depends also if you're, I don't know, a narcissistic person or because you're going to perceive yourself very differently then. But or if you are self-conscious, or
It is a level of self-consciousness, in my estimation, to
so-
adapt this technique.
Mhm.
I don't think this is something we are born with. I'm suggesting this is a way to get a more to get an opinion about yourself by yourself without the help of others that will get you closer to how others perceive you, and might be getting on a point of view that's very different from how you initially perceive yourself. That's what I'm saying.
So
I
you
think
think
I understand where the
you think so? To know really how you are, we should in some way find an in between thing in between what other think of you and what you think
No,
about
not
you're
what others. Well, okay.
like.
Let me answer your question then. Because when you asked me why we talk,
Mhm.
I think part of it is, first of all, I think some people actually are able to think during talking, and only then. So that's one of the reasons. But the other one is you want to see other people's reactions to the thoughts you have in your head, which is kind of a feedback system. But
Yeah.
if you can do it alone, you can get to a certain extent without the help of somebody else, just by consciously deciding to look upon yourself as if you were somebody you knew from outside, instead of.
So comparing yourself to others.
Yeah, because for example, when I think of you or of you, I can't think of what's going through your head. I have clues probably because I know where to look, but these are just assumptions. I can't be sure. So why do I take it into a 100% necessity? Why is it a necessity to take that into account when I think of myself? And essentially making my assessment of my personality way harder. Most of the time I see people getting up to the point where they don't see the forest from a tree. There's so much information that they think they possess, and a lot of the personalities that you have in your mind are very contradictory, right? So it is very different to judge anything based on those contradicting instincts and emotions and situations that you have. But instead of that, you just stop yourself and don't waste energy on that, and try to use only the things that you actually do, that simplifies things to the point where it could be actually useful. I'm arguing for that.
Okay, so when you say you judge it based on only the things you do,
Yes, I think you are what you do.
what's the forget the metric? What's the basis of that judgment? Like, for example, what would you say? When would you say what you're doing is something X or something Y? Let's say you did something. Let's say you said a bad word in a crowd. We'll go simple, childish.
Yes,
childish
let's
demeanors,
start the
right?
basics.
Right.
Okay.
What basis are you using to say that is now your perceived personality?
I don't understand your question.
You said a bad word in a crowd.
Yes.
Now, it could go several ways, two of which are, oh, now I'm a bad person, or oh, now I'm a good person.
That's
It could go several hundred ways. These are two of them.
yeah, that's the wrong level of analysis to go on already.
Okay.
That's
If you're building a projection of your personality, you need to have a sense of whether you are a narcissist, a nervous person, a neurotic person, an orderly person. You need to have these parameters. And these are not accurate, but these are the only basis we have to the made up idea of personality.
why okay, maybe we might not do this exercise for the same reason then. Why do you guys
I don't do this exercise at all.
yeah, that's I saw it on your personality
Yeah.
test. But you do.
I do what?
You think of yourself, you think about the things that aren't going well in your life, and you try to analyze it so that you could improve on them
Yeah.
consciously.
I do that too.
I don't think you really
No,
are in the
But
mindset.
yes, I do
That's
that.
the
but
point,
then-
right?
Then,
That's
then what?
separate.
Then what?
No, that's the reason
We
why
all
you.
Yeah, but-
adjust according to people
Wha-
around
wha-
us. That's not what I'm debating.
When
I'm
I
not
think
talking
about
about other
that,
people
when I
around.
think about that, I also try to think about why I did those things.
And I
Like,
think it can easily mislead you. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's necessarily wrong. I'm saying it's something you wouldn't consider on somebody else, so you will have a more biased sample.
yes, that's true, but I also think that what you do is a symptom, you know. And for example, if I
It is.
yes, so let's say I look at what I'm doing in my life with my life or something, and I'm not happy with something, and I'm gonna try to change that. Let's say I do too much. I do drugs too much. I'm not gonna just try to stop doing drugs. I'm gonna try to think about when I'm doing them, why am I doing them, and fix that. You know,
Okay.
like
does
the
does
cause,
it
not
does,
the symptom.
okay? If you understand why you are doing it,
Mhm.
what does it change?
I can act on it more efficiently instead of just
How? How can you affect? Okay, let's say
because
let's say
I can reason with it.
No,
I
you
can,
can't.
I can,
That's not
I
how
can
it works.
reason myself.
Let me give you an example.
Addiction is actually
I
a
take-
really bad example to bring up in
No,
this
no,
case.
no, no,
I
let
didn't
me-
say. I didn't say if I in the case where
I think it's a very good
addicted.
example.
I didn't
think
say
it's-
in
No,
the
I
case
think
when
it's
I
bad
was,
not because it's.
I didn't say it's a case where I'm addicted to a drug. It's just like I don't know if I don't smoke. I'm not a smoker, but if I was like smoking pot too much and I was like, yeah, I smoke too much. You know, I'm like being lazy or something, and or I eat too much when I smoke, and it's not good. So I need to change that. So it's not about just okay. I'm gonna stop smoking pot. It's more
You understand
why do I
you were
smoke
doing
pot
it.
when that happens? Why does it happen? And then I'm gonna try to act on that because it's more. It's like you have a headache. You know, it could be multiple things. So you can take painkillers, but it's if the headache is like. It's
No, I said addiction is a bad example because it's much like it's a symptom
yeah
of something else that
is it chronical or not? If it's chronical, it
can
could be a brain
analyze it.
tumor, or just you need new glasses,
Yes.
or
Addiction is a
so
sickness,
That's
yes.
that's what
That's-
what you should act on.
it's not a personality
I
trait.
absolutely disagree with what you just said.
Addiction is a sickness.
Yes.
It's definitely the sickness.
It's no.
Why
It's-
not?
It's
Because
no. Let me say this.
I'm
It's
interested in
definitely a sickness in the scientific community. It's accepted as a sickness.
yeah,
So
it's
there's no
you
doubt
you
about
guys are wrong. And I
s-
tell you why.
No, tell me because I don't think that addictions are inevitably.
No, not
sickness,
100%. Some of them are. Addiction is a result of psychological effects.
I didn't say it's not a consequence of something else.
Well, some
Yeah,
addictions
sickness usually is something that tries to kill you. Addiction is you trying to escape from something. It's not the same thing. The
Sickness doesn't
intention.
try
Well,
to kill you.
Sickness.
it depends if the addiction is psychological
Okay.
or physical. It's
You are the sorry, you are the biologist. What? Why not?
Sickness doesn't try to kill you. Sickness is almost all sicknesses have their own categories. For example, there are chronic, lethal, fatal diseases which try to kill you, but many diseases.
Maybe I understand this word.
People
differently.
can live with. Actually, in many cases, people live with herpes throughout their life without much lethal or fatal damage to their body. Many people live with several other conditions, psychological especially, where they can live with it throughout their life without ever being in mortal danger as such. Sickness doesn't try to kill you. Sickness is defined as a state of unwell between of your mind or your body. And addiction is that because, and it could still be a consequence of something else, but it is being unwell at the mind of the body. It is not a personality trait.
So for you, it is a synonym of pathology.
Yes.
Okay, well, this is not how I understand this word, but I agree with the idea. It is a pathology.
Mhm.
It is a pathology, and it is a consequence, but it's the source of it. I mean, it's not. It is not like a disease you get infected by, for example. That's why that's what I was arguing for.
Most
I think
psychological
it
diseases
depends
you
on the
don't-
circumstances. For example,
Most
let's say-
psychological
it's-
diseases.
Let's
I-
say let's say you
No, I agree with you, but I think it's a minority of cases where
yeah,
it is
I think that's
biological.
I think
but
you're right
there-
on that. I think you're right on that.
But
Like
and I would like to
it's
talk about
very
the
rare
majority
that
rather.
a kid gets addicted to heroin just because he
it
tried
happens.
it.
It happens.
Yeah, but
Heroin is
just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
Let's say it's very rare.
It happens.
I,
No,
I,
sure.
I think
know.
it happens, but it's still like not.
And
the
some
most
people have
cases.
more how should I say this more addictive personalities. That's what they say, but it's not the expression I'm trying to use.
let's
But
say they
they have
have it-
more affinity to pick up on an addiction than others.
Yeah,
So,
I
and I
do,
think
for example.
it also varies depending on the substance itself.
Yes, of course, because you're
A
gonna
lot.
get addicted like psychologically or physically. You don't get addicted. For example, let's say
I think both are the cases in every single case.
no.
It's just not the same
It's like-
ratio.
If you like to do cocaine in France, you're gonna find like the cocaine isn't pure enough, so you develop unless you base it and you're injected or but let's just say you snore it. You snore cocaine. It's just there is just not enough cocaine in it, like pure cocaine, so you can get physically addicted. But if you do heroin, your body is gonna crave for it. When you're addicted to cocaine, usually it's more that you're addicted to the effects that the cocaine has on you. It's not like your body really physically craves the cocaine as it does, for example, with heroin. So these are different.
It's a hard distinction because what it does is normally if you use cocaine long enough, then your dopamine receptors are getting clogged, and so
Yeah,
which
this is
means
true.
that your dopamine production will be different. And so when you take off the get off of cocaine, not only you are craving the dopamine income that you want, it doesn't. To me, there's no difference whether it's because you're not injecting it anymore or your body not making it. It's the same
Can I
thing.
take
Okay,
a
so
crack
let's
at
say
that?
let's say I chose
Can I
the
take a
wrong
crack at that?
example.
I mean, you were pretty close, so I just want to like make it official.
Yeah, well, that's
In
why
any kind of addiction, cocaine, heroin,
have both.
cigarette, weed, chips, fast food, cycling, whatever it is, dopamine is involved.
Yes. Okay. So
because addiction is.
let's say I chose a wrong example. Because these
No,
are
your
two different.
examples are just more
Yeah, but-
nuanced.
Yeah, but it was like two different drugs. Let's say with alcohol.
Mm.
With alcohol, it takes like minimum 20 years to be physically addicted to alcohol.
I
Because
think
it's
I
not
think
as-
one
but
glass
still-
is enough sometimes.
No, physically addicted. That your body needs it. to
Right.
function.
So
It takes-
because dopamine
Okay,
is involved
sure.
in all forms of addiction, over time and with almost all substances that cause addiction, your dopamine receptors get desensitized.
Yeah.
You eventually start getting less happiness out of the same amount of substance, which is why you get more and more substance
yeah, but you
and
could
keep
choose
sticking to it.
you could choose another
Yes.
substance.
So in the 70s and 80s, people tried to do a study of associating the dopamine gene with probability of getting addicted. They were trying to see whether people who have a higher level of dopamine receptors are automatically less immune to get addicted or vice versa. They were trying to correlate
yeah, if there is a
this
genetic
this
factor
this
or
kind of
something.
thing. They were not able to find a strong correlation, and the reason is because it's a matter of cause and consequence in that you can get addicted to a substance purely because it is more addictive than other substances, but the
There's
variability is
always-
on both ends. Is with
But
what I
then-
mean.
Then, if it's just about being a dopamine addict, then how do you
We are
explain that?
all dopamine addicts.
Yeah.
Yes, but how do you explain that you stick with the same drug? For example, if it was just about if every addiction is physical because your body craves dopamine, then
It's not
why?
the same amount though.
Yeah, and also in my
I didn't agree. I didn't argue the fact that heroin is going to have a different level
Yeah, but,
than like gambling.
Heroin was
I know, but it's an extreme example, but it illustrates the point. I'm saying it's in both cases there is physical addiction. It's just the ratio is very different, but there's
Yeah, but
always.
let's say it was a wrong example. I should have chosen the
No
same
matter
drug.
what
For
example you
with
choose, it's the
alcohol,
same.
because alcohol is the exact same drug. You can really observe and measure two different phenomena like physical addiction and psychological. For example, I was psychologically addicted to alcohol, but I wasn't physically addicted to alcohol.
Okay,
But so
sure. No, all
it
right.
was more about the effects of drugs than really what it does to my. No, it's what it does to my
No,
body, of course, because it was the
okay,
effect,
I
but,
see
you know,
why you're
uh,
making this distinction.
I'm
because
still not able to.
let's say the cocaine and heroin example wasn't.
Well,
It wasn't
it's
a
way too
proper example for
wild.
what I wanted to say.
When you say physically addicted, what do you mean though?
That you
That
can
your
die.
body-
That you
your-
can die when you actually
Yeah, your body needs
stop at
alcohol
zero,
to
at zero.
function.
And alcohol
That
is
is
one of the
physical
few
addiction.
drugs that can actually kill you if you're physically addicted to it and you cut it cold turkey.
Okay, so that's the withdrawal effect though.
No, the
It's not to do with the substance and its
Yeah,
dopamine
it's just that
cascade.
your
It's to
body
do with
needs
its
it to
withdrawal.
function. It's not. Yeah, but it's not because it's not just withdrawal. It's just it needs it to function, and you're still addicted even if there is no withdrawal. You're not less addicted. You know.
But your body can function before you were addicted just
I don't know
fine.
how we
Most
how we
Yes,
have
but-
gotten here, but I don't think this is the direction I wanted to take this in at all.
That-
Because
that's
I
what
don't
happens
I don't think
if
it
you-
I don't think it really matters. I think it's making it harder when you are physically addicted, but psychologically it is very easy to get addicted to very
Yes.
many things.
Yeah, because it depends on how strong you are with yourself, like
And how,
mentally.
yes,
Yeah. And
exactly.
we can be like super weak.
Okay, so where I was starting this whole idea from is that would you judge your addiction differently if you knew why you did it, and you think you would be able to better negotiate it with yourself, whether you want to stop it or not?
It's not about not whether I want to stop it or not, because we are talking about a situation where when I already decided to change something about it. So it's
Okay,
not about,
let's say that. All right. Do you think that you have that just because you understand why you're taking it? No, that's not the question I want to ask. Will you regard yourself to be a different person just because you know why you are doing drugs? That's the core of my question.
yeah, I think so.
Would you do that with anybody else?
Yes, I think so. When I was working in the bars, I wasn't it was more about it wasn't related with my experience with alcohol, but I would consider alcoholics differently depending on how they behave and why, and for example, I would consider differently someone who pukes on my shoes because it's a, I don't know, a 19-year-old girl, and she drank like recklessly and now she's fucking drunk, and some other guys that is just
No,
drunk
but
there
the
and
same girl, but you would know that she is puking on your shoes because her father died that day. Now, would you regard that puke differently? Not really. It's still
Yes.
fucking annoying.
Yeah, it's annoying, but still, I mean, yes,
If you
of-
knew it, I hope you would consider it
I would
differently.
consider it differently. It would piss me off because I have to. pick
Here's
it-
the thing: you
because
don't know
I
it
got
because the other
because-
person doesn't say it. Now, should you forgive them in that case or not?
I think, yeah, I think I could not in that case in particular, but I could forgive depending on the circumstances.
Exactly, but you don't have the circumstances because you don't know the other person.
He's
Now-
asking whether you forgive
Yeah, but
someone for
that's why I talk with people when I talk with them. It's like,
Exactly, but okay, let's. Sure, that's why you talk, so you could hear a narrative coming from them. Doesn't change the outcome, though.
that
That's
will
what.
change the way I perceive the outcome.
Yeah, but the outcome is still the outcome with or without you, and that's what I'm arguing for. That it's until you actually engage in a narrative, it's the majority of the people around you will see what you're doing because you don't have the time and effort to narrate everything that you do and
Yes, of
justify.
course.
And you shouldn't either, even. Why should you? It's a lot of effort for not really a lot of profit. So why would you think of yourself differently? And why would you complicate your life to create a narrative for it when it might give you a more efficient outcome? I'm not saying it's necessarily better, but okay, let me give you an example. For somebody goes into drugs because well, a father died that's a
Yeah,
very good
that's it.
example. They become a heroin addict.
Mhm.
have a hard time putting it down. How is it any different from somebody who has a whole family, had a profound childhood, well balanced, and still gets into the drug, and they end up being hobos in the same, I don't know, train spotting like room, with the
You know,
mattress.
if I don't know the back, you're asking me if I would judge them differently if I not knowing the backstory.
Obviously, you wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't. Of course, if I don't know the backstory, of course, it
And
would
I'm
just be a
saying that
hobo and hobo.
you would, and I'm saying that in your assessment whether you should spend, whether you should, for example, trust them with money, I don't think, or trust them with their promises
Mhm.
that they make you. I don't think that knowing the narrative should be taken into account.
No, it wouldn't. Of course, in that case, it wouldn't.
So your behavior, regardless of the narrative, in some cases don't change, right? That's what
In
I'm
some
arguing
cases,
for.
yes.
In so okay, when does it really?
You mean the backstory? When does it?
When does the narrative change? What kind of narrative is necessary for you to have a different behavior towards somebody else?
Usually the outcome decides.
For example, just some. I take.
No,
let's
the
say,
outcome is the same. That's what we are arguing for. The
let's say
narrative is different.
let's say I'm taking the bus.
Okay.
Let's say my mood is standard, and the let's say the bus driver is like super rude to me.
Mm-hmm.
If I know that he had a shitty day or he got into a fight with a passenger just before, I'm gonna judge his attitude differently. That if I just don't, if he's just an asshole, you know.
How does it manifest itself in your actual behavior at the end?
Because
You're gonna have just a bit different thoughts in scenario one.
yes, but
there's no behavioral change. So
there's
except
no
for you,
behavioral change in his behavior, but
neither in yours.
yes,
It's just what you
yes,
go
because
through
if
you.
someone is rude to me, like, and I consider it for no reason, I'm gonna say, yeah, fuck you. What is that?
Okay,
And
so
if I know that the guy has had a problem like 5 minutes before, I'm gonna be okay, it's okay, just had a rough day, you know.
Kind of brings me back to the same thought that I had at the beginning of the conversation.
It's situational.
Very context dependent. Personality is not one thing.
But that's in a context where I know the backstory, of course. If
And
I don't know the backstory, it's
so
just a rude guy.
if you had to put it into numbers, in what amount of your social interactions you think you are fully aware of the circumstances that causes somebody's malicious behavior? Statistically
I
speaking.
couldn't tell because I'm not asking
Yes, you
every
could.
time. The thing is, over the last years, I noticed that I tend more often to think about what could be the circumstances.
It's
And
not
before-
knowing. I'm asking knowing. I'm not asking for assumptions. How
Yeah,
many
but
times do you know it? I'm simply asking
Almost
for statistics.
never. Almost
Exactly.
never. But the
Why
thing
are you
is-
taking them into account when you are thinking about yourself then? It's stupid. That's what I'm saying. It's effort that's thrown out the window because nobody else will judge you this way. You shouldn't either.
Thing is, even if I'm not asking, if I don't know the circumstances, the backstory behind someone's actions, I'm gonna think about it still. That's what I was about to say. The last years, or like for when someone does something, I'm gonna. When I was younger, I was like, yeah, he's just an ass.
Arthur,
And
that
now
only
it's
means
more
that you
like-
are more empathetic than before, but that's not what I'm arguing against. What I'm arguing against is that many people I meet, you guys are exceptions, but you don't, either of you have that deep problems. But the people I encounter very often and I find interesting, they have a situation going on they are not a fan of. Something's happening, and they try to analyze the situation around them. What's happening? And when it comes to okay, then it's my behavior that's problematic. Now, what should I do about it? Well, I know that I am doing this because of this and this and this, so well, it's fine. And that's the narrative I'm saying, that this kind of forgiving yourself, for example, for a lot of things that you wouldn't forgive anybody else, is a very counterproductive element of
Yeah,
it.
that's true. I agree with you on that.
So, in the very same way, just because you think that you would kill your spouse until you do it, I think this is one of the Catholic Church biggest and worst contribution to Western society is the
You are
sense of
what you
guilt.
think, and if
Yeah.
you think bad, you are bad.
That
That's,
the
yeah.
bad thoughts are that
Yeah.
breed guilt. I think that's one of the worst things that they introduced, because it is
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
inevitable. That's why, by definition, you are a sinner.
Yeah, it's like a fuse, thinking about things.
But by
and doing
definition, you're a
things like
sinner because your original sin. Because of your original sin, no?
no,
The
it's
original
everyone
sin
is
is
not
inherently
about that.
sin.
It's just
The
that
Genesis
God,
story is
God
different.
can see your thoughts, and so you are your thoughts. And
Either way, it's
you can be guilty of
quite
the thoughts.
morally
And,
bankrupt.
and in some sense, I agree that you are your thoughts, but you have to manifest them first. And it's kind of magical if you think about it, that you come up with an idea and sometime later the whole thing is just organized in a way that it just comes up in front of you, and
Yeah,
it
that's
has
true.
happened.
The Catholic Church is like you are as guilty as your of your thoughts that you are of your deeds.
Yeah, it's quite damaging.
And so
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's quite damaging, and I see
Yeah.
this in a lot of people, and I think this is something.
But I don't
Now-
think also that you can completely ignore that either. For example,
Sure not. No,
yeah.
I'm not
I
not
don't
saying
think
you
Yeah,
can.
yeah.
You can be
anyways.
efficient.
You
You
can-
can be efficient with it though, knowing that by default you have this bias towards yourself, that you wouldn't allow anybody else in your circle around you. Then that it already helps you to see yourself more closer to an objective image, that closer to something that I think is easier to
Just, yeah.
analyze for actual problems. Because when I say that, okay, I'm an asshole to all women because I didn't have a father growing up. Now, it doesn't matter. I'm still hurting people.
Mhm.
So, but I'm saying I allow myself this. No, you shouldn't, because
You
if a girl is an asshole to me because she didn't have a father and she didn't,
Yeah, I guess
I wouldn't
guess
excuse
it depends
her.
on how rational you are as a person. I mean,
Yeah, but you guys are very rational.
Yeah.
And even you argued for the idea that you are what you think, because by default, this is not something people think about. Now, when I sent you this personality test that I wanted to send, you said that how accurate could it be when it's self-assessment? Yeah, no, I agree. I know it's your perception about yourself. This is what I was interested in. So it's not going to be accurate representation of who you are or what you are. I don't think you could quantize it anyway.
You can't.
It's true that it's your perception about yourself through the answers, but still the questions are the same and they are analyzed the same way
For everyone.
And there's not
for
a lot of
everyone.
analyzation
So
going.
That kind of creates some kind of balance, in
what
the outcome.
what is very important, that it's not explained in percentages, it's percentiles, which means that depending on the basis that they have received as an information, which is over as of yesterday 200,000
yeah.
people have filled this out, that puts you in a crowd. It doesn't mean that being 100% at something is like being at the first percentile. It means that in a given spectrum of people, you would put here, if all those people are just murderers, then you will have a different outcome than
Yeah,
if
it
all those people are
situates
just
you in the crowd. It's not like
exactly.
you are in the 90%, but he says you are here in the 90%.
Now the reason why
that works well for judging attributes that are quantifiable. I think it still doesn't.
I don't think these are quantifiable.
They're
so,
not, which is
no,
why percentage
it's-
or percentile
so it's
would
not
be
representative,
equally.
not representative as a human trait, but it is representative in how rare these particular traits in you in the society that has already
Well, because it
filled
compares
it
you
as-
to the other
Exactly.
people. And but that's also what we do. I mean, for example, you said
So they are the control for it.
The difference between let's say that in the case of someone that would excuse a behavior he has and wouldn't excuse the same behavior to some other person.
Most people I see are like that.
That's but then it doesn't happen. There is a bias, but just as for a test, if you compare yourself, if you're a rational person, when you think about what you're doing, you're going to compare yourself to other people, and for example, if I do something, you're and I wanna let's say I wanna ask myself if I did something bad or if I did something wrong. I'm gonna ask myself, is someone did that in front of me, or if someone did that to me, would I perceive it the same way? That's what I'm gonna ask myself.
That's
And
the same thing.
and that's what
articulated
the
in a
test.
different way.
That's what the test does. It situates you. It's rational. It situates you
Tries to be.
in the middle of the
No,
crowd.
no. That
compares
part
you.
is only in the terms of the percentile and how they put you in the assessment score. But the questions, the determinants are not the percentile. The percentile is an output
Yes.
or a readout
Yeah,
rather.
but it's
The
same thing
determinants
as
are the
asking yourself,
questions.
the question doesn't change. Is it bad or is it?
Yeah,
is
but
it,
when you're asked that question, it's regardless of how many people have taken the test and what kind of people have taken the test. The questions are determinants.
yeah, but statistically, if you want to have a representative sample of a population, it's like random people.
No, that's
So-
okay. That all is accounted for in the percentile, and I agree that it is a much better way to estimate this than
Yeah,
putting
have
you
to
on a
compare
1 to
yourself
10
be-
scale.
to have
Yeah,
an-
because there's no 1 to 10
have an-
scale.
No 1 to 10
to have a
scale.
rational
It
and
still
I-
doesn't encapsulate it.
Because the reason why we are doing a personality test is not to have a number associated to it.
This-
Why are we taking personality tests? Why is it?
to situate yourself, to compare yourself to others,
To
to
respond,
know where you are.
to be closer to the ultimate moral question that you can ask, the hardest question that you can ask yourself.
In my opinion, and again, I am a critic of
I would
personality
say
tests.
it
I think
gives
most
you-
people take
it gives
personality
you-
tests for
it gives you
validation.
comparison data that you don't have by yourself to estimate how
No, I don't
how
think
you
that's.
are.
I think that's what this test on understandingmyself.com does well, is that it doesn't give you a quantified information. It gives you a comparison to the pool of those people who actually completed the test.
Yeah, but then you have access to more people than.
Yes, it is true, but
yeah.
that's why I suggested both of you this personality test and not anything else I have ever found, because anything else I have ever found tries to put you into boxes, which is, I think it's a problematic supposition, because you don't belong in boxes. That's why personality is hard to assess.
Yeah, but the questions that are the determinants of this test also do put you in boxes.
They have to, in a sense.
More discrete boxes, but
Yes.
sure, still boxes.
Yes. Well,
And that's not a flaw in this personality test. That's a flaw in the idea of a
I
personality
don't think they
test.
put you in boxes.
I don't think
just
they
say,
put you in a box
They
either.
just say, okay.
They
so
say, here's a situation.
they put
they
you in
just say-
situations.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
For that situation, your answer may be an accurate reflection of yourself, and that's about it.
Yes.
And
That's
this
the
is the
closest
problem.
you will ever get.
And this is why I'm saying that when we start talking about personalities, we have to understand, first of all, there is no such thing as one personality of yourself.
that test doesn't put you in a box. It just says that because it's a trait for every trait. It's a trait everyone has. It just says, okay, in that trait that
Well,
everyone
for example,
has, you are here
orderliness.
or you are here.
In
For
the
example.
populace, not just here or there. That you are. How rare are you with that?
Yes.
Now that's the most
But it's
important.
not a box. It says.
But why is
says,
it im-
It says everyone has it, and you're here.
So why is it important in the social context where you find yourself?
Well, let's go back. For example, when we deal with orderliness in the questionnaire, and I do want to talk about that one, because
We
when we
will,
deal with
but I-
orderliness, I don't think it can accurately assess your orderliness as a personality trait.
It doesn't.
It can only
It doesn't
tell you
say it will.
it shouldn't, and that's why there's a disclaimer, is because it can't. You
No.
say orderliness in terms of these things: is your room tidy and is this ordered and all, but that does not at all reflect how you are in a different environment, like your workplace
Yeah, but
or
then
someone else's
it's-
house.
It's your responsibility when you answer the question to think about.
Truly,
that.
and this is why I think people who take personality tests usually take it for a sense of validation, because the answers are going to, or the scores are going to reflect what their idea is of themselves, and that is a form of validation that we all
Now,
seek. It's
that
inherent.
that is your assumption, and
That
I
it
don't
is
really
my
agree with it.
opinion. It's not a fact, as little a fact as a personality test can be.
I
This
think
is not either.
people I think genuinely we try to take personality tests for a completely different reason, not just self-validation. We also want to know where we go wrong.
That's usually what we do in real time.
Yeah, for some people maybe, but I don't think this kind of
How
personality
can you
test.
know when you're wrong? No,
Well, this is the thing. This is the other facet of personality. How other people react to what you're doing is
exactly.
usually how you tell yourself, "Oh, this person didn't like this. I shouldn't do this the next time around."
So
And that is a real-time process that everyone does.
yeah. So what is the question then? That we
There's
are,
no question here.
there is a question. The question is,
There's a
how
reaction.
should I behave so it would be proper in all the contexts that
It
are
will
possible?
never be. You will never come up with a one rule personality that
No,
will be appropriate
I'm not
for all
saying you
contexts.
will. I'm saying that's the question you're asking, though.
You shouldn't ask that question.
Yes, you should.
No,
it's very important.
absolutely. That's
Yeah, but
where
it's-
the
it's-
troubles
but
begin for.
then the answer is very situational. There is no.
That's where
It
the
is very
troubles
situational.
begin,
Exactly.
because see, this is like toppling the apple cart. In physics, it happened quite a while ago. The presumption is that you can work with these ideas. Oh, personality is here, and we can have a type or a mode of personality that can fit in every context, and it can be appealing to.
This doesn't say any of that.
No. I'm not even talking about the test at this point.
Okay.
I'm talking about just the general idea.
Yeah, but that's why I sent this, because it doesn't have this general idea. It excludes it
No,
altogether.
Matt, I'm saying all personality tests. The idea of personality test, not this personality test or any other personality test.
It's
The
not like the
idea
others.
of
That's what I'm trying to
assessing
say.
someone's personality, or you yourself trying to pinpoint and answer that question that you just asked, is in itself an apple cart, which is getting tossed quite frequently these days as we understand more about human psyche. Is that it's not something as concrete as you can shape it. It's really not. It's far too fluid, and it's very hard to come up with one way to make it work in all contexts. You will stumble and fall and be wrong.
So should
and be
we
unattractive.
abandon even trying to get there?
I'm saying the exact opposite. We should try and fail and embrace the failure.
And that's what happened right there. That's exactly why I sent it, because this is the closest I have gotten. It is fairly inaccurate. Sure, and
No,
it's on self-report. It is fairly inaccurate.
No. What I said no in the sense that I'd not even restrict it to the context of the test anymore. I think in general, when you ask the question of what is my personality, without using a test,
That's
or
not the
with
question
using
you
a
ask.
test,
Again,
The question you ask yourself is what am I doing wrong?
How should I act-
yourself?
how should
could
I
you
act-
improve yourself?
not necessarily. Well, yeah, that's how I phrase it, because I
Yeah.
think it is only by. To me, this is through conscious development and thinking about it and practicing and failing over a long period of time and then succeeding. How I got there, but it's not necessarily exactly that thought. But what I see common in everybody is is like either asking themselves the question is that either how should I behave in this social context, and what am I not doing right, or I'm afraid to act like I would like to. This is the two cases that I see.
this is very real time. Yeah, I agree with you. And
So-
we keep asking this to ourselves
You have
every
to.
step of the way. And and that is all there is.
Exactly.
It's a continuum of just that. That's our personality. We determine it based on the environment we're in, and it could. And again, this is only the facet of personality that others will see, because this determines the way you act. There is a completely different facet of personality, which is the way you think, and there could be a completely different facet of that personality 5 years later, because it's far more dynamic. So
I'm not sure about that.
I would say
To my
it's-
experience, it's exactly the opposite.
I would say it's
we think that's
fairly-
malleable, but it's not really.
I'm not saying it's malleable, I'm saying it's dynamic. Malleable means that you can change it. Dynamic means it's going to change. You do anything about it or not.
It's going to change based on context. Yes.
Based on your experiences in general. At least this
I
facet
don't-
of personality.
I don't see that.
Okay, so I'll dwindle it down to two facets of personality. The one that is perceived, the one that is of your thought or of yourself.
Okay.
The personality facet that is of yourself, let's call it A, is dynamic not just malleable or not malleable, because the experiences that you have are going to change the way you think about something.